Chapter 31. Formation collapses. Luan didn't go to sleep that day. It was already 5 in the morning, and he didn't necessarily need to sleep every day. Meditation, when he uses it to raise the chi of his pseudo-core, made him feel rested both mentally and physically. So instead of sleeping, Luan returned to the training room, holding glass jars that were separated by quality. Removing a superior chi collection pill from the pot, he swallowed while meditating and using the technique, negative white dragon transformation. Something strange happened. The moment he started using the technique, a vortex formed and sucked the chi around voraciously. Luan felt the limit of his body break twice in a row, even he was surprised by this. In addition, he was very close to being able to break the boundary of his body again. Now he was 32 times stronger than an ordinary man just using his body. If he used his pseudo-core chi, he would be 42 times stronger than an ordinary man. In the next 45 minutes, Luan spent the time stabilizing his cultivation. Opening his eyes, Luan felt refreshed. Carol, who was in Florianopolis, decided to return to Juror Internacional. At the airport, she sighed. She was still upset by the way Luan had treated her before. Besides, who was that $TCH who was with him? She sighed again and thought she should act faster or she would end up losing him. I can't allow some whore to steal my man, Carol exclaimed in her mind, determined to win Luan over again. Luan had already showered and prepared breakfast. It was 6:50 a.m. when Ingrid and Christina woke up. Luan, good morning, the two girls said in unison. Good morning. Luan nodded and said, take the opportunity to train a lot today. The formation we have in the training room will be undone in a few hours. Okay. Ingrid nodded. She already expected this, since Luan was rushing his return to Juror Internacional. Master, I've almost reached the strength limit of 5 ordinary men, Christina said happily. Congratulations. I see that you are training diligently. Luan praised her, rubbing her head. Tilda. Christina was so happy to be praised, she let out a cute little laugh. It was the first time anyone had praised her for something, after all. Okay, let's eat, Luan said. After eating and putting on their gym clothes, they went to the training room. Before the two girls started training, Luan gave each one a chi collection pill. This is very valuable, right? I don't know if I should accept, Ingrid said, uncertainly. I can always make more. Just take it, Luan assured her. Okay, thank you. Ingrid smiled, shyly. Thank you, Master, Christina said. Luan replied with a wave. He then took a chi collection pill himself and swallowed it. This time, he would not try to break the limit of his body, but rather reach level 2 of the chi refining stage. While meditating, Luan felt the chi particles forming throughout his body and going towards the center of his body where the pseudo-core was formed. As the chi energy came into contact with the circle of the pseudo-core, another circle started to be created. Gradually, Luan managed to create half a circle, and with the great concentration of chi he had in the chi collection pill, he managed to continue to form the circle. Although the substantial strength of the newly created circle was not as significant as the first circle, the moment he created the new circle, using the pseudo-core chi would be 10% stronger and would increase to 110% the amount of chi he had initially. While meditating, Luan did not notice that someone stealthily believed that he was very handsome while looking like a deity with a semi-transparent white aura around his body, and ended up taking a picture of him. After taking pictures until she was satisfied, Ingrid felt very brave for doing this, but soon after, she blushed furiously. Even still, she did not regret what she did. She took a few deep breaths and started to meditate as she finished doing the body technique movements. When it was close to noon, an explosion occurred. Bang! What happened? The two girls opened their frightened eyes. Luan also stopped meditating and opened his eyes. He then noticed that the formation was broken. The energy that remained in the formation is gone. Luan gave his verdict, seeing that the crystals that were used broke into pieces and fell apart, losing their luster. Oh, only then did the two girls notice that the formation no longer had any effect as the pure chi air of heaven and earth had returned to normal. Leaving that aside, I see that you two have made some progress, Luan said, not caring what had just happened, as he expected the formation to break up at any moment. Yes, I reached the strength of 20 ordinary men, said Ingrid, pleased with herself. Of course, she knew that all the credit was due to the pill she received from Luan. If it were not for this, it would have taken her much longer to achieve this feat. Very good. You can now start practicing a chi technique. Luan smiled, and then looked at Christina. Seeing Luan look at her, Christina said, I reached the strength of 6 ordinary men, almost breaking the limit of 7. Very good. As well, Luan nodded and said, now that your foundation is ready, you can now train a better body technique. When we arrive in Juror Internacional, I will teach you one. What do you think of that? It would be my pleasure. She said with a cheerful smile. Okay. Let's get ready. Today I'm going to take you two out to eat, Luan said, but before Ingrid left, Luan asked her, Ingrid, do you have a sore back? Oh, a little, but it should be back to normal soon, Ingrid replied. I can fix that quickly. Let me have a look at it, Luan stated. Okay. Channeling chi on the tip of his index and middle fingers, Luan, at a very fast speed, pressed 10 acupuncture points on her back and pushed the bone back to the place where it was supposed to be. Ingrid let out a low, cute moan, and because of that, she was very red with embarrassment. Ready. Luan pretended not to hear her moan, and asked, are you better now? Yes, a lot. Ingrid turned and said, thank you very much. It was no big deal. If something like this happens again, just consult me, said Luan. Yes. Ingrid already had total confidence in Luan. Although she was shy about certain situations, she felt very close to him now. An hour later, Luan and the two girls had already showered and put on clothes to go out. Next to the Dallas Hotel, there was a restaurant famous for its seafood. Luan planned to go there with Ingrid and Christina. You two are beautiful today, Luan did not forget to praise them. It didn't hurt to recognize how beautiful the two girls looked when getting dressed. Thanks. You are also very elegant. Ingrid blushed. Thank you, Master. I think Master is the most handsome man on earth. Christina said, exaggeratedly. But, she was being sincere, she actually believed that. Chapter 32. Invading the Zing clan. Being a more reserved restaurant and prioritizing customer satisfaction, the tables were spaced quite apart from each other. Luan, Ingrid, and Christina were on the second floor, seated at the table by the window. From there, they could see the movement of the streets. I've never eaten a cut of roasted mullet before. Is it good? Christina asked, almost drooling. On the table, there was a silver platter and on top of the platter was a 40 to 50 cm sliced mullet. Yes, take your fork and take some and try and see, Luan told her. Okay. Not wanting to look hungry, Christina took a small piece of the fish's meat and brought it to her mouth. She exclaimed, delicious. Ingrid said with a gentle smile, next time, put some lemon on it. Christina nodded childishly in a cute way, and did what Ingrid suggested. Asterisk. Are you two sure you want to go with me? Luan asked again. Yes, we are. They nodded with determination, although they knew that Luan was likely to kill some people today. Okay. I'm not going to try to convince you two girls otherwise, but you must listen to me and not act rashly, okay? Luan warned. Yes. Christina and Ingrid replied in unison. Wearing dark clothes, Luan, Ingrid, and Christina left the Dallas Hotel. It was almost midnight, and the streets were quiet. Getting into a taxi, they headed for the Zing clan. You can stop here, Luan said to the taxi driver. There were still 2 kilometers left in order to reach the Zing clan. After paying the driver, they got out of the taxi and started walking. On the way, Ingrid and Christina saw Luan go around the Zing clan's territory and place some small shiny crystals. Not taking her curiosity anymore, Ingrid asked, Luan, what are you doing? Creating a formation. Luan explained without turning around. This formation that I am creating, not only will they be trapped, but when I destroy their power base, I will store it in this crystal. He turned and showed the girls a glowing crystal the size of Christina's palm. His reason for doing so was easy to guess. Luan intended to cripple their power nuclei and steal it. In doing so, the Zing clan could never again depend on their powers and would not be a threat to the lives of the people he cared about. In fact, the power of the Zing clan was inherited, but if their power core were to be destroyed, the next generation would not inherit the clan's powers. Therefore, when Luan destroys their power nucleus, he would also be ending the lineage of being able to control their fire. So, you don't intend to kill them? Ingrid asked. No, I think leaving them without their powers is worse than death. It was a certainty that Luan had. For a clan that was willing to sacrifice its own children, it showed how much they liked to have powers that few people were privileged to have. They felt superior to other humans because of that, and it gave them enormous satisfaction. So, just to imagine the impact they would receive when they lost their powers, it was easy to guess that they would be beyond shaken. While talking and explaining these things to Ingrid and Christina, Luan had already finished creating the first stage of the formation. He said, "It is almost done. Now, I just need to activate it." As Luan started to walk closer and closer to the Xing clan while he murmured some unknown words in front of the two girls, they continued to follow Luan in silence, not wanting to disturb him. When Luan finished chanting the mantra, he threw the crystal in his hand into the sky and the crystal shone as it floated and stood high in the center of the Xing clan. That was also when an invisible force began to cover the entire Xing clan, alerting them. What is happening? Quick, let's see. The natives of the Xing clan left their homes and were amazed to see a semi-transparent veil covering the sky. My God. What is it? Is that a formation? We are under attack. Prepare yourselves. A disturbance was caused throughout the Xing clan. The clan leaders were also looking at what was happening, and they felt their hearts pounding and a bad omen clouded their thoughts. Oh, well, if it isn't the traitor, Christina. Did you return to the Xing clan in search of forgiveness? Luan, Ingrid, and Christina had just entered the gate of the Xing clan when an arrogant woman walked over and started talking to Ingrid. With a fake discerning smile, Christina replied, "Traitor. Hey, do you think I didn't find out that you guys wanted to use me as a sacrifice for yourselves?" The expression of Tina, Christina's stepmother, twisted in anger, but she had to endure it. She was afraid of the young man next to Christina and didn't dare to act hastily. Her voice filled with ridicule, she exclaimed, "What's wrong? You're just a bastard who was raised to be a sacrifice for my baby. Don't think your life is worth more than that, stinky little girl." If it were before, maybe Christina would have started to cry when she heard these harsh words, but she was no longer the same. She had tasted some of true happiness and some of the love that Ingrid and Luan gave her. With a dangerous look, Christina said, "Don't think that with your poisonous mouth, you will be able to shake me. Tina, I am no longer the same poor child who begged for the love of her cruel family." What? Tina staggered backward. She was afraid when she looked into Christina's eyes. She felt a sense of unease as she stared at her. How can I fear this disgusting mongrel? Mom. Haldora, Christina's older sister, approached Tina and helped her to support herself. Then she gave Christina a hateful look. Smelly little girl, don't think you're someone important just because you've got someone to protect you. In the end, he will die for challenging our powerful Xing clan. Haldora screamed venomously. Narfi Orland was silent. He was Christina's father, but he had no fatherly love for her. However, he felt uneasy whenever he looked at the current Christina. He also felt that she had become stronger than his eldest daughter, Haldora, and that was incomprehensible since Christina was not yet 15 years old. Luan, who had been silent all this time, said the following words that made them tremble with fear when he felt his aura. "Christina, do you want me to destroy their cores of power, or do you want to do that?" Luan decided to let her choose. He thought that if she wanted to resolve this with her own hands, he was willing to help. "No, Master, you can do this. I just want to be a spectator," Christina replied. "Okay." Luan walked towards Narfi Orland and his daughter and wife. "Don't come any closer." Tina hugged her daughter and took several steps back. Luan had already felt the presence of several leaders of the Xing clan watching from afar, but they were not taking action. He continued to walk, not caring if they were going to act now or not. It was easy to guess that they were using Narfi Orland's family to see how strong Luan was. However, before they could see anything, Luan had already appeared in front of the pair of mother and daughter and with 2 index fingers, he pierced their stomachs with chi on the tips of his 2 fingers, destroying the power cores of the pair of mother and daughter. This was also when a red light came out of the mouth of the mother and daughter and flew skyward. "No!" Narfi Orland shouted, but it was too late. His expression distorted, and he ran towards Luan with very hot flames manifesting in his right hand. He felt immeasurable anger in his heart at seeing his wife and daughter falling to the floor, holding their bellies while whimpering. "Idiot," Luan said nonchalantly when he saw Narfi Orland lose his mind and attack him blindly. Still calm, Luan was as quick as lightning when he countered with brute force. Boom. Asterisk. When the 2 fists clashed, Narfi smiled victoriously, but soon his expression distorted in pain, and the bones in his arm began to make strange sounds. That was when he was sent flying away by the exchange. "This boy is a demon," an elder from the Xing clan exclaimed when he saw this. "Patriarch, I think only you can stop him," the first elder said. Even he did not feel confident of taking Luan's punch head on. The patriarch did not answer. He frowned as perplexity filled his heart. How can this young guy be so powerful? He wondered. Because they didn't act fast, The elders didn't have time to act when Luan appeared again in front of Narfi, who was now lying on the floor, moaning in pain, and that was when Luan stepped his foot on Narfi's stomach. Although not weak, Narfi's strength was at most 20 times stronger than that of an ordinary man, which would have been easy even for Ingrid to deal with, but Luan, with his body alone, was 32 times stronger than an ordinary man. Dad! Haldora saw this scene and screamed out in despair and fainted. Narfi also could not endure the pain of having his energy core destroyed and passed out. From his mouth, red light with golden threads spewed forth. Patriarch, what is that light that came out of their mouths? The first elder asked. He felt threatened while watching this fight and was frightened to see that red light come out of the mouth of Narfi and the two women. I believe it is their powers. Patriarch Unner pointed to the crystal that floated in the sky, which before was the color of crystal glass, but now was turning red. Look at that. This. The elders were surprised to think about it and were even somewhat greedy when looking towards the crystal. Will any of us be able to absorb the powers that are heading towards that crystal? One of the elders swallowed his saliva dry as he murmured. Quote. None responded, but they started looking at Luan differently. For them, power was even more important than the family itself, and seeing what this young man was capable of doing, greed clouded the hearts of these wicked people. Even Patriarch Unner felt nothing when he saw his son losing his powers. He was even somewhat happy from what was happening. Maybe this is a gift from heaven. He felt confident he could beat Luan, so he hadn't acted yet. He decided to let this young man get tired of fighting the other members of the clan and accumulating powers, and then he intended to capture Luan and torture him until he told all his secrets. Let's stay and watch. While it is tragic to let many clan members lose their powers, it is not a good thing to underestimate this young man. Patriarch Unner made up an excuse. Of course, the elders understood that it was just an excuse. They all had distorted smiles while agreeing with Patriarch Unner's statement. Chapter 33. White Aura. Even after Luan destroyed the power core of 10 people from the Xing clan, the Patriarch and elders did not try to go against Luan. It was as if everything that was happening was not their problem. Of course, Luan didn't care if they attempted to interfere or not. He even guessed why they were waiting to attack, but they were destined to be disappointed. Luan had a very strong physique, and his stamina was strong enough for him to be able to fight for 3 days in a row without getting tired. Many people from the Xing clan attacked Luan at the same time. From inside their bodies, flames appeared in their hands as they lunged towards him. The closer they got to him, the hotter the area became. Luan suddenly moved so fast that the natives of the Xing clan's eyes could not keep up with him. His attacks precisely hit the centers of their bodies, where their energy cores were located, destroying them. In less than a minute, 10 natives of the Xing clan were lying on the floor with a mark from Luan's finger on their stomachs as something red came out of their mouths. No. Those most obsessed with power, when feeling their powers leaving their bodies, screamed, filled with resentment and pain, and passed out. How can he still be so full of energy after all this time fighting? What kind of monstrous resistance is that? The Patriarch began to be concerned. The more he watched, the more his forehead wrinkled, and he started to get anxious. Now, the natives of the Xing clan didn't even dare attack Luan carelessly. The fear on their faces was visible for everyone to see. They no longer treated Luan as a young man who would be easily defeated, but as a monster that needed to be exterminated. What caused them more confliction was the fact that the Patriarch and the elders had done nothing so far. They didn't even move a finger to help any of them and watched as the people of the clan lost their powers. The moonlight shone and countless stars were blinking in the night sky. Meanwhile, Luan continued to attack and destroy the Xing clan's power cores. Ingrid, who had been watching Luan fighting all this time, started to analyze and try to learn something from the battle. Many of our people have already lost their powers. Should we act now? The first elder asked. Quote. Yes, although he seems to be abnormal, I am sure he has already exhausted a good part of his strength. If we act now, we can deal with that little monster. The Patriarch decided to act. Holding a blood-red spear he used as a cane, he jumped off the second floor of the roof. Before he fell to the ground, flames broke out on his feet and slowed him down, and he landed on the ground looking as light as a feather. Brat, surrender to us, and I will let you live, said Patriarch Unner, and then he added, if you don't, prepare to die a slow and painful death. Hey, Luan chuckled as he said, it looks like bragging is your forte, but why did you wait so long if you are so confident of being able to kill me? Tisk. What does a brat like you know? Patriarch Unner said cruelly. Wasn't it just some trash that you defeated? I just wanted to test your power. Now that I know it more or less, I don't see any reason to continue doing nothing. Those who were defeated by Luan and were still conscious, upon hearing this, became so angry that they vomited blood and passed out soon afterward. Whoosh. Asterisk. Luan said nothing, just moved even faster than lightning, and appeared in front of Ingrid and Christina, and attacked two elders who were sneaking up on them both. Boom. Asterisk. With a diagonal kick, Luan made the two elders fly 1,000 meters away and destroy a building in the process. Even so, the two elders did not die, but blood was strewn all over their bodies. Rubbish. Luan's voice was extremely cold, full of murderous intent. Since he and the Xing clan were enemies, he was always in a state of surveillance. He already knew that sooner or later they would try to attack Ingrid and Christina to capture the two girls and use them to threaten him. However, little did they know that Luan was going to act so fast that he almost killed two of the elders with just one kick. Despicable bastard, screamed one of the elders dressed in white, with blood all over his body, vomiting both his words and blood simultaneously. He looked at Luan with hatred and bloodlust. Flames broke out throughout the elder's body. Luan appeared next to this elder and used his negative chi. Boom. Asterisk. Luan's fist hit the elder's chest and made him fly while he continued to vomit blood, and immediately afterward a cry came from inside the building as the elder went through the wall with his body. A red light with golden threads came out of the building and went towards the crystal that floated in the sky. Luan furrowed his eyebrows. He was able to feel all the changes that were happening around him. After starting to use his negative chi, his sensory perception became more precise, and at that moment, he clearly felt countless balls of fire flying towards him. Suddenly out of his palm, a white aura appeared and formed a large aura in the shape of a human palm and went towards the fireballs. Suddenly, the storm of fireballs was entirely exterminated by the negative chi palm attack. How did he do that? The elders who attacked were in awe, their jaw dropped, and fear made their bodies shudder. What Luan did was not a simple counterattack to defend himself. He practically made their attacks disappear as if he had never existed in the first place. With those weak attacks, do you guys believe you will be able to kill me? Luan's entire face showed indifference to their attack, and a monstrously murderous intention made them want to retreat and flee. Luan used his advanced senses and quickly moved near a 3-story building. He had already felt many elders hiding inside the building. Although they were well hidden, they were still discovered by Luan. The same white aura again enveloped Luan's fist while powerful chi manifested itself, and he released strikes at the building several times. Boom. 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 Asterisk. White aura ran throughout the building. Subsequently, the building exploded into pieces. White aura exploded from inside as the building was completely destroyed as if it had been bombarded by speeding trucks. Shortly afterward, 10 bodies full of bruises with blood coming out of all their holes gradually flew from the destroyed building. In the blink of an eye, Luan flew past tens of meters while simultaneously shaking his fists. One after another, chi white aura glowed in his fists, transformed into a powerful aura, and attacked all the elders. Immediately afterward, many screams came, followed by pieces of meat accompanied by the blood that rained on the collapsed building. In an instant many people died. Red lights with golden threads floated in the sky and went towards the crystal. Luan's assassin chi also increased. He once again jumped towards another group of elders who were hiding, directly covering his fists with white chi aura while throwing punches towards the building. When the 5 elders hiding in the building saw Luan's formidable strength, they quickly fled. These elders were at most 30 times stronger than an ordinary man when using their flames, and their speed and power could not be compared with Luan's. In an instant, they were crushed by the building that collapsed after being hit by Luan's punches. Some didn't even have the courage to leave the boulders and pretended to be dead, but to their dismay, Luan threw a shower of punches of white aura, which made them all shatter beneath the pressure. This. Patriarch Unner hesitated. If before he was full of himself, and thought that Luan was just a potato chip in front of him, now he started to fear for his life. Everyone back up. He is too strong. Patriarch Unner came out of his stupor and shouted. He expected his people to spread out and run, and while Luan went after them, he would take this opportunity to run. Luan did not want them to flee. He created the formation strong enough to prevent anyone under the second order from being able to escape in such a short time. In addition, the formation's durability had only increased after the crystal absorbed the powers of the Xing clan. With light and quick steps, Luan ran. He tracked down and attacked those fleeing and did not let any of them approach Ingrid or Christina. As he destroyed their power nucleus, red lights and some with golden threads floated towards the crystal. Half an hour passed, and the Xing clan was silent. Luan calmed his murderous intent within his body. More than 400 individuals lost their powers, and 20 of them ended up dying. Each person who died by his hands also helped Luan understand his negative white aura and increased his assassin chi. My god. Patriarch Unner, who was desperately trying to escape by attacking with his spear against the barrier created by the formation, was shocked to see that of all the people of the clan, if they were not dead, they had lost their powers. Please spare me. I'll do what you want. Upon seeing Luan approach, Patriarch Unner knelt on the ground and begged for his life. He didn't even try to attack Luan when he saw him approach and begged for mercy. Luan did not answer and continued to walk towards Patriarch Unner. When Luan was only a few steps away, the Patriarch screamed and attacked with his spear towards Luan's chest, covering the spear with powerful flames. Die. Luan counterattacked with his chi-wrapped fist that formed a sinister white aura. Boom. Asterisk. The exchange of attacks made Patriarch Unner retreat a few steps and rendered him unable to continue holding his spear as it flew away. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Patriarch Unner felt his heart beat faster, seeing that his sneak attack did not work. Forgive me. Don't kill me. With a kick at the speed of light, Luan's right foot, which was surrounded by white aura, kicked Patriarch Unner's head, causing his head to explode with brain boogers. Humph. Who are you trying to kid? Luan snorted with indifference. Although he had no intention of taking the lives of all the people in the Xing clan, he would not spare the lives of the elders and their patriarch. Before undoing the formation, Luan manipulated the memories of the people of the Xing clan and made them forget about Christina's existence and think that a meteor fell on their clan and destroyed everything, killing more than 20 people, including the elders and the patriarch. Undoing the formation, the energy crystal that now shone in a strong blood red light with golden threads, landed on Luan's hand. Let's go back, Luan told Ingrid and Christina that they nodded in agreement. The way back to the Dallas hotel was silent. What had happened was a lot for Christina and Ingrid to digest, and now the two girls truly realized how powerful Luan was. Chapter 34. Luan, you're squeezing me. In the room, Luan had not slept. He had been feeling strange since he discovered he was capable of creating assassin chi. Assassin chi was usually seen only in wild animals. This was very similar to an active skill in a game where the player's attack power increases. In the case of assassin chi, it increases the power of the attack and also affects the mental state of the prey. That is, doing this increases the chances of the opponent being distracted. Luan could feel the assassin chi inside his body in a sleeping state. He only had to want to use it, and the assassin chi would be activated. This came about because of my technique, negative white dragon transformation. Luan kind of suspected it was because of this, but he wasn't sure. Anyway, it was a good thing that he had acquired it. Now, whenever he killed someone, his assassin chi would increase, making him stronger. Of course, Luan did not intend to go around killing, but surely, when the third awakening was going to happen, and all kinds of living beings would appear, it was illogical to think that he would not need to kill. Another thing, the fact that he fought more than 400 people from the Xing clan made his body exert a lot of strength. What might be the benefit if he meditated and strengthened his body while it was still warm? However, the formation of the training room had already been undone. Although not the best option, Luan took the energy crystal, which now glowed in red light with golden threads, and thought about using some of this energy to strengthen himself. The current classification of the energy crystal was in the final stage of the third order. Nowadays, it could be said that this crystal was a rare item that would be difficult to find. Although this was so, Luan still intended to give most of the energy contained in the crystal to Christina. Luan recalled that Christina had the origin of the flames of the Titans. Unlike the standard red flames of the Xing clan, Christina's flame would be purple. When Luan started to meditate and channel the energy of the crystal to strengthen himself, Luan felt his whole body heat up. He clenched his teeth and endured the pain he was feeling. The most incredible thing was that Luan felt that due to the flames that were stored in the crystal, his body was being refined, eliminating a good part of the impurities that accumulated in his body, mainly because of the pills he had taken before. Time went by very fast until it was 4 a.m. Luan was soaked from head to toe with sweat and also expelled a lot of impurity from his pores. And it didn't seem like it was enough, as he felt a sharp pain in his stomach and was forced to go to the bathroom quickly. Asterisk. The next morning, Luan woke up early. He felt full of energy, mainly because he reached the final stage, from the corporal foundation, now being 33 times stronger using only brute force, without the help of negative chi. Around the table, with the three of them sitting on chairs and eating bread with ham and cheese, Luan said, Ingrid, before we leave, if you want, you can teach the body foundation technique to your mother. So, you don't have to worry so much about something happening. Luan placed on the table a transparent bottle with a pill inside and a paper with the body foundation technique mantra written on it. You can give this pill to your mother. If she takes it, it will help her reach the strength of 2 to 3 ordinary men in a short time. Ingrid looked at the objects that Luan placed on the table and was surprised. She bit her lip and whispered, Thank you. Okay. Today we are not going to train, Luan said, you can go and teach your mother at any time. I remember you told me before that today is her day off. Yes, I will do that. Ingrid nodded. Christina. Luan looked at her and said, I already applied for your transfer to school Villa Olympia. Already? When did you do that? Christina asked, surprised. Well, I just needed to break into your old school's system and change the data. And they will not notice that something different has happened, Luan explained. Now your father, stepmother, and sister. Well, I made them forget about you. It's better this way. Christina would have been lying if she said that it did not affect her when she learned that they would forget about her, but when remembering everything they did to control her, Christina believed it was better that way. Incidentally, Luan, Ingrid asked, are we going by car? Yes, my mother has already sent someone to fetch us. We can leave at any time, Luan replied. Oh, okay, Ingrid nodded. Asterisk. In the late afternoon, Luan finished picking up everything he had kept in the Dallas hotel suite and was ready to leave. At the reception, Luan passed his credit card and paid an amount of $250,000. $30,000 for Samantha and 50,000 Brazilian reals for Sebastian. The rest was for his stay at the hotel. Thank you very much, Mr. Luan. Thank you so much. Samantha had tears in her eyes. 30,000 was the biggest tip she had ever received. For her to normally get that amount of money, she would have to work all year without spending a coin. It was no accident that she was so moved. Sebastian was also beaming. He, the recipient, showed so many emotions, smiling from ear to ear. He was already planning to take his wife for a romantic date. Luan, who rarely smiled, said with a small smile of his own, I was very satisfied with your services, you both deserve this. Anyway, we are going. Bye. Goodbye, Sebastian and Samantha. Ingrid said goodbye to them and with Luan and Christina, got into the white limo that was waiting for them. Asterisk. What? Did Luan return to Juror Internacional? Wagner Hamibo, who still couldn't find Monica, was indignant to learn that Luan was leaving, but he himself didn't want to go back to Juror without meeting Monica. With each passing day, he seemed to become more and more obsessed with her. He had even been dreaming about her and remembering the night the two had had together. Damn, you guys are a bunch of incompetents. How can you not find her yet? Wagner Hamibo cursed. Asterisk. Inside the limousine, Christina commented ecstatically, so much luxury. Look, is there a television? Luan laughed a little and said, you can watch if you want. Oh, no, it's fine. I like to see the road more, Christina said as she looked outside the window. It wasn't just Christina who was surprised to be in a limo. Before, when Luan spoke about a car, Ingrid imagined it would be a luxury car since Luan's family was very wealthy, but she did not expect the car to be a limo. Time passed very quickly, and soon they arrived at Juror Internacional. Because of the bad Friday traffic, it took over an hour to travel. Wow, there are so many beautiful houses and expensive cars. Christina murmured, surprised as she looked outside. Ingrid felt anxious as she saw so many houses that seemed to cost more than $1,000,000. She even saw many cars that cost more than the value of the house she bought with Luan's help. The car kept moving and eventually arrived in the neighborhood of Canisvieras, which was the neighborhood with the most expensive properties due to the construction project of Sapiens Park and the duplication of the SC401 highway. Arriving in front of a white mansion dressed in glass that faced the sea, the limo stopped and the driver got out and opened the door and spoke to the passengers respectfully. We have arrived, Mr. Luan and guests. Okay, thanks. Luan got out of the limo. Christina was feeling like a lady by having someone open the door for her to leave. She said with a silly smile as she left, thank you. Ingrid also thanked the man and got out. Shall we? Luan led the way, heading towards the mansion. Reaching the sidewalk, he opened the glass gate, and they went up 10 steps and arrived at the mansion's door. Before Luan could use the key to open the door was opened by a beautiful tall woman with green eyes with wavy dark brown hair, looking as if she was a model. Mother. Luan froze when he saw his mother opening the door. His body had a will of its own when it walked towards Mara, and when Luan arrived in front of her, he hugged her longingly. Ingrid, having seen the woman Luan called her mother, now knew why Luan was so handsome. After all, his mother was beautiful. Luan, you're squeezing me. Mara fought, lightly. Oh, it was one of those rare moments when Luan was embarrassed. He pulled away and stared at his mother that he hadn't seen in years. Boy, what happened to you? Did you miss your mother so much? Mara laughed. Yes, mother, I missed you so much. To Mara's surprise, Luan did not deny it. Because of that, she felt shy, and seeing two girls behind Luan, she hit him on the head lightly, and pretended to cough to avoid her embarrassment and turned, looking at Ingrid. Hello. You must be Ingrid, right? Yes, I am. It is a pleasure to meet you. Ingrid said nervously, bowing in the direction of Mara, who stole a laugh herself, thinking Ingrid was cute. The pleasure is mine. Mara smiled beautifully as she spoke. She assessed Ingrid and nodded in satisfaction. She looks polite and very beautiful. Then Mara looked at another girl who looked to be 14 to 15 years old. She asked, and who is this cute girl? Mother, she is your granddaughter, Christina. Luan said seriously, which made it seem to be true. Christina, please, your grandma. Ah, Christina felt lost. She wondered whether to go along with this or not. Mara, who was for a moment shaken by what Luan said, soon remembered that her son was not even 10 years old when this girl was born, and gave Luan a light slap on the chest and said, Boy, you stayed away all this time, and now you want to troll your mother. Humph. Try something better next time, because it didn't fool me. She was lying, since she was stunned for a few seconds considering the possibility, but of course, she was not about to admit it. Luan laughed and said, Mother, she is the Christina that I had talked to you about on the cell phone before. Well, let's go in, and then I'll explain better. Yes, yes. Come girls, make yourself at home. Mara said with a welcoming smile. Thanks. Ingrid and Christina thanked them as they entered. Passing through the door, they came across a low spiral staircase, on the right side of which was the living room. Luan walked towards the living room and his mother and the two girls followed. On the opposite side of the living room from where they entered was a white wavy table, and next to it was the kitchen, and in front of the kitchen was the dining table, and further on, there were sofas and armchairs. Near the wall, hanging from the ceiling, there was a 52-inch television. They sat on the light brown sofa and Luan said, Mother, there are many things I wanted to say to you, as well as many things that I need to show and even teach you. But, let's start gradually. First I'm going to talk about Christina. After hearing Christina's story, Mara had tears in her eyes. She couldn't believe that this beautiful girl near her had gone through so many difficult moments. Poor child, come here. Let your aunt hug you. When being embraced by Mara, Christina felt a warmth in her heart that she had never felt in her life. Without her knowing it, she let some tears fall from her eyes. It's decided. Mara seemed to have made up her mind when she asked Christina, I want to adopt you as my daughter. Would you accept that? Chapter 35. Bone reconstruction pill. Christina was startled. She bit her lip while her eyes went moist. However, she faced Mara and hesitated a little until she said, I really want to. But is it all right? Do you really want to be my mother? Can I really be your daughter? Mara smiled softly and said, Of course you can. Mother. Christina walked timidly towards Mara until she got up close to her and was hugged by Maria. Perhaps due to being very happy, Christina, surprisingly, started to cry. Little girl, don't cry. Smile, smile, Mara said gently while stroking Christina's cute little face. Christina wiped her tears and smiled slightly. She looked very happy and adorable, like a rainbow after the storm clears, making Mara gush over Christina's adorable appearance. Minutes later, Luan asked, Mother, where's Katharina? She should be back shortly, Mara said while still hugging the lovely little Christina. She is at a friend's house. Mom, I'm back. As soon as Mara finished speaking, Katharina's voice echoed from outside the house. This was also when the door opened and a white-haired beauty, cold and proud, entered the house. I'm here in the living room. Mara answered aloud. Mother, when will my brother be? She didn't need her mother to answer, since Luan appeared in front of her very quickly and gave her a tight hug. Katharina was caught off guard. For a moment her mind went blank. She returned to her senses and said, surprised, Luan. Yes, little sister, I missed you, Luan told her. Okay. Okay, I missed you too. Katharina then said a little helplessly, can you put me down, please? Nodding, Luan walked away. He looked at Katharina in a complex way. In his past life, because he didn't pay much attention to his sister, she had died in a horrible manner. Just thinking about what had happened made him furious. But this time nothing that happened would repeat itself. He would not let anything bad come to his family ever again. Come, I was waiting for you to arrive. I have something to say to you and Mom, Luan said, pulling his sister by the hand. Okay, take it easy, Katharina said with a sigh. Who are these two girls? Seeing Ingrid and Christina, Katharina looked at them strangely. Ingrid was already up. She approached Katharina and held out her hand and said with a smile, I am Ingrid, nice to meet you. Katharina, although she didn't understand what was going on, she was polite and shook Ingrid's hand while greeting her. Christina bowed slightly towards Katharina and said, my name is Christina. Hello, cute little angel, Katharina greeted her with a smile. After they greeted each other, Luan summarized more or less what all had happened. Now I'm going to say something that you and Mother must listen to carefully, Luan said seriously. As much as it seems unreal, what I am going to say is all true, and I will prove it. Hearing this, he had piqued the mother and daughter duo's curiosity. First of all, the supernatural exists. Although not all legends are true, some have been exaggerated, they are close to the truth. For example, Luan caused his body to be surrounded by a white aura that amazed Mara and Katharina. And seeing red flames appear in his palms, it shocked them even more. This is real. Can it be touched? Katharina was a little skeptical about all this, it was too unreal, to say the least. But she decided to believe her brother for now. I don't recommend touching it, as this is no different from normal fire, and it will burn you. In fact, I have super strength. Luan suppressed his aura and made the flames disappear and said, follow me. Okay. They were both quite curious to find out if what he was showing them was true or not, since what he did before seemed only like something from a magic trick. Arriving outside, there was a diamond made of blue-colored concrete which weighed about 1 ton. Luan went out and held it with both hands. The structure was large, almost 2 meters wide and 3 meters long. Luan deftly picked it up off the ground very easily, leaving Mara and Katharina's jaws dropping. Wow, how can my brother be so strong? Katharina covered her mouth in total disbelief. Luan, how did this happen? How did you become so strong? Mara was concerned that her son had gone through some crazy experiment and that it had harmed his health. Mom, Katharina, you've heard of or seen cultivation movies, right? Seeing the two nod, he continued, I basically did the same thing. I cultivated and became stronger, and as I learned more, well, let's go in and sit down, and I'll tell you more about it. Returning to the living room, Luan began to tell Katharina and his mother Mara all about cultivating. After explaining this and everything, he had already planned something to say which was not far from the truth, but at the same time, was far from being true. Now what I'm going to talk about next. You girls need to promise me to keep it a secret. Only if your lives are at risk can you talk about it. Seeing how serious Luan was being, they all nodded. This, of course, included Christina and Ingrid. I have memories of a past life. To be more precise, it was 10,000 years ago, and I was a cultivator in my past life, and I went through many things. The girls jumped, giving off a wave of gasps in unison. 10,000 years ago. It's hard to believe, but after seeing you lift something that weighs 1,000 pounds, it makes me want to believe it, Katharina said with much surprise in her voice. This is not the most important part. I said all this because, Luan said, 10,000 years ago, the Second Awakening happened, and it made many people, animals, even plants gain powers. And this is about to happen during the Third Awakening this year in the month of June. Luan, little by little, told everything about the Third Awakening. Upon hearing this, Mara and the girls were very surprised. They did not expect that something so unbelievable would happen in such a short time. This is unbelievable. I can hardly comprehend half of what I heard, but I don't think you, my son, are lying. Mara sighed and said, now that you've said all of this, you must have some purpose in doing so, right? Yes, I want to teach Mom and Katharina how to cultivate. However, before doing this, I need to create a bone reconstruction pill. Luan went straight to the point. Bone reconstruction. Is this because of my and Mother's injuries? Katharina's voice was shaky. Although not much, she still had some difficulties due to her broken bone and having had it replaced by a metal plate. Yes, I already have all the necessary items, Luan said seriously. I intend to create the 2 bone reconstruction pills today. Katharina asked, brother, is this very difficult to create? Katharina was concerned that this could harm Luan in some way since she was unaware of the alchemy that was capable of creating miraculous effects. Yes and no, Luan replied. If it were a few days ago, it would have been fairly difficult for me to do it, but now it is not that difficult. After talking for a while, Luan said, okay, you girls keep chatting without me. I'm going to my room to create the pills. Asterisk. When Luan arrived in his room, he felt nostalgic. He hadn't seen his room like how it was in a long time. Not wanting to spend a lot of time lost in nostalgia, Luan, who brought a cauldron from the kitchen, sat cross-legged on the floor, with the cauldron in front of him. On the right side was a light gray cloth bag. In the bag, there were all the items needed to craft the bone reconstruction pill. 2 hours later, I did it, Luan murmured as he felt drained. He had spent a lot of chi to create the 2 pills in front of him. Chapter 36. Deactivating the sense of pain. Ingrid, do you also have powers, the same as my son? Mara was still digesting everything she had heard before. To be quite honest, she was a little confused and could hardly believe it all, even after seeing her son lift something so heavy and make fire come out of his hand. After all, she lived her whole life believing that the supernatural did not exist. There was no way she could believe something like that so easily or quickly. Katharina had a bit easier time managing to believe what they had witnessed, but she was still upset and trying to come to terms that the supernatural existed. What left her most upset, and very scared, was that her brother said that in a few months something like an apocalypse was about to happen. Ingrid thought about how to answer Maria's question and replied, Luan taught me a little. Although I am not as strong as he is, I can easily lift something that weighs 1,000 pounds. However, I only know how to use brute force. I can't make fire or anything like that. Oh, but that is also amazing. Mara smiled. She thought that being that strong was, in and of itself, sensational, especially for beautiful women who were constantly harassed by men, and if they were not fortunate, could end up being abused. Being strong enough to lift 1,000 pounds. It's hard to imagine myself doing that. Katharina murmured. She looked at Ingrid and saw that she was quite thin and beautiful. She didn't look like a macho woman full of muscles. I, on the other hand, can only lift something around 300 kilos, Christina said. She started cultivating a short time ago and was only able to have grown stronger than 6 ordinary men. This is already surprising too. Mara exclaimed, it is very difficult for me to lift something that weighs more than 20 kilos. This, however, was mainly because she broke the bones in her arm and leg. Mom, do you think Luan will actually be able to rebuild our bones? Katharina asked suddenly. I don't know, either, my daughter, but I want to believe so. Yes, I will make it. Luan's voice echoed with confidence. Down the stairs, Luan gave off a confident aura. The girls looked in his direction, and his words made them believe what he said. Seeing a clear glass bottle in Luan's hand with 2 round balls of a grayish color, Mara and the girls guessed it was the bone reconstruction pill. Luan, you'll need to remove the metal plates from our bodies, right? Katharina asked fearfully. This is not going to hurt, is it? And how are you going to do that? I will disable both of your senses before I withdraw the plates, Luan said. Deactivate our sense of pain. Without anesthesia. Mara was surprised. Can you even do that? Yes, in fact, it is very easy, Luan said modestly. Okay, I trust you. Mara then asked, what do we need to do? Let's go to the gym. This is easier to do in a more spacious place and easier to clean up later, Luan said. Okay. Nodding, they rose from the couch. Christina and Ingrid also went with them. In the gym, Luan said to Mara and Katharina, Mother, Katharina, sit down on the floor. I'll turn off both of your pain, and then I'll remove the metal plates. Nervous and scared, his mother and sister did what he said. After the 2 of them sat on the floor, Luan sat down behind them. After placing the bottle with the 2 pills on the floor, he put his hands on their backs, and started using his chi to turn off Mara and Katharina's sense of pain. It didn't take long. A minute later he had already done it. It's done. When Luan put his hands on her back, Katharina only felt a current of energy invade her body, but other than that, she felt nothing different. She pinched her hand and exclaimed in surprise, wow. I didn't feel anything when I pinched myself. Luan laughed at her reaction and then said seriously, okay, now I'm going to remove the metal plate. I recommend that you close your eyes until it's over. Okay. Katharina did as he said. She didn't want to see how Luan would take the metal plate out of her arm, since she was afraid of being scared or disturbed in some way. I want to see. Mara, on the other hand, wanted to see the process. Luan had already imagined that she would say that. He said, okay, just relax, it won't take long. When I remove the metal plate, it's good if you don't move much. In order not to harm Mara and Katharina, Luan would remove the metal plate from the inside out using his chi. With his hands still on the backs of his mother and sister, he started to channel his chi, and when he reached the 3 metal plates, he peeled off the bones, and with chi, he cut the skin and pushed them out of his mother's and sister's bodies. When half of the metal was out, Mara, although she was not in pain, felt as if she had lost the control of her left arm and leg. Luan took a deep breath and stabilized his chi, and once the plates came out halfway, he started pulling the metal plates with his hands. Done, he murmured. He then said, now, all you have to do is swallow the bone reconstruction pill. Right. Mara was stunned, but managed to calm down very quickly. She nodded and knew she had to trust her son. Okay. Katharina opened her eyes in fear and nodded. Taking the bottle with the pills, Luan opened and held it. He put a pill each in Katharina and Mara's mouths. Swallow it, and I will help you through the process. When his mother and sister finished swallowing the pills, Luan again positioned himself behind his mother and sister, and put his hands on their backs, channeling his chi and helping them to digest the pill. When Luan's chi came into contact with the pill, it started to dissolve and turn into pure energy, and Luan directed it towards the broken bones. When it came into contact with the broken bones, like glue, the pure white energy merged with the bones, and Luan's chi was being sucked madly as the bones that were broken began to rebuild themselves. Luan was sweating a lot. He was spending a lot of chi to be able to help his mother and sister rebuild their bones. Even if the pill made the magic happen, without Luan's chi to support it, it was impossible to get it to work. An hour later, Luan was drenched in sweat and breathing deeply. He said in his husky voice after reactivating his mother and sister's sense of pain, it's done. When it ended, Mara and Katharina were thrilled to be able to move their arms without the slightest effort. It even seemed to be better than normal. Before the mother and daughter pair realized, tears were streaming from their eyes. God only knew how difficult it was to live with a metal plate in their body. Although one could still live normally, there were many things they had to avoid doing. Besides, it just wasn't the same as having one's own bone. Luan, thank you very much. Katharina turned and threw herself into her brother's arms. She could barely control her tears while crying loudly. Son, I am speechless. I can only say that I am very grateful and happy to be your mother, Mara said and hugged Luan too. Luan smiled and said, it is my pleasure to be able to help you both. Okay. Don't cry. Smile. Smile. These are tears of happiness, so everything is fine, Katharina said with a pout. Ingrid, seeing this scene, discreetly wiped tears from her eyes, but avoided making noise so as not to disturb their happy moment. Christina was the same way. She was very happy for her new mother and sister. And most importantly, she was happy with the choice she made to follow Luan. Mother, Katharina, I need to go to my room to rest. I also recommend that you both take a shower, Luan said with his tired voice. Okay. I don't know exactly how you did it, but I see it has worn you out a lot. Go rest, and let us clean up, Mara said with a gentle and kind smile. Luan nodded and staggered toward the stairs. Luan, let me help you. Ingrid went to him very quickly, and let him lean on her. Thanks, Luan said with a weak smile. You don't have to thank me for this, Ingrid said gently and smiled. After that, Ingrid helped Luan up the stairs. Arriving at the second floor, Luan said, it is the second door on the left. Ingrid nodded and helped Luan walk to the bedroom. Opening the door, she didn't even have time to see what was inside Luan's room, because, out of nowhere, he stopped walking and simply fell on the floor. Panting loudly, Ingrid was scared and quickly went to help him. She blamed herself for not holding him more tightly. I'm fine. I just used a lot of chi. If I get some rest, I'll be better, Luan said slowly, with heavy breathing. Okay. Don't speak now. Let me help you. Ingrid, surprisingly, took Luan in her arms to the bed, and laid him down. Of course, for her to carry Luan in her arms like this was now easy for her, although it made her blush a little because he was so close to her body. Ingrid, In the second drawer there is a bottle with a blue pill. Can you take one from inside and put it in my mouth? Luan spoke, as he pointed to a table beside the bed with a lamp on it. Yes. Ingrid went to the table and opened the second drawer and saw the pills Luan was talking about. Picking one up from the bottle, her hand trembled as she held it towards Luan's mouth. Thanks, Luan said and closed his eyes, digesting the pill's chi. Chapter 37. Stolen Kiss. My God. What did I do? Ingrid was about to pull her hair out. The moment Luan fell asleep, she thought he was so handsome asleep that she ended up admiring him for a few minutes, and then, she ended up kissing his lips and ran away from there as soon as possible. I must be going crazy. With her back against the door, Ingrid's heart was beating like a drum. She thought she would be so bold as to kiss a man who was sleeping. She scolded herself, and after calming her agitated heart, she let out a few sighs and took a few deep breaths. After patting her cheeks twice, she went downstairs, going to the first floor. Returning to the living room, Ingrid saw that only Christina and Katharina, who were drying her beautiful white hair, were in the living room. Katharina looked in Ingrid's direction and asked, "How's my brother doing?" "He'll be fine." Ingrid blushed a little as she remembered what she did before, but quickly returned to normal and continued to say, "He took a pill that helps restore chi. He said he just needs to get some sleep now, and he will be fine." "That's nice." Katharina sighed, relieved. She was concerned that what her brother did before might have been too demanding for him. She knew him and knew that for a long time he blamed himself for breaking her arm while protecting him in the accident. "Big sister, Katharina," Christina said suddenly. "Yes, my little sister." Katharina, who always wanted a little sister, was full of love when talking to Christina. She even made Christina call her older sister, since she would be adopted by her mother and be her younger sister. "Now that I'm going to be adopted by your mother, should I call Master Luan a master, or elder brother Luan?" Christina blinked her big eyes innocently when she asked. "Oh, about that. Well, you said that he became your master on the path of cultivating, right? So, just when he is training you, you can call him master, but in other situations, treat him like an older brother," Katharina said with a sweet smile as she rubbed Christina's head lovingly. "I understand." Christina nodded strictly, and said with a lovely smile, "Thank you, big sister." "Hee. You don't have to thank me for that. Now, you're part of the family." Katharina stopped drying her hair and hugged this adorable girl, placing her head in the middle of her breasts. Christina raised her head or else she would be choked by Katharina's breasts and looked with her big adorable eyes in Katharina's direction, almost making Katharina have an attack of cuteness. "My God, how can you be so cute?" Katharina hugged Christina even tighter and then kissed her perfect face several times. Christina, who has never been so appeased before, felt shy, and a slight flush washed over her face. "Katharina, you will scare her if you disturb her so much." Mara's voice resonated along with a gentle laugh. Mara, who had just taken a shower, was feeling very well. She hadn't felt this good in a long time. Quote. Katharina didn't want to admit it, but she also knew that she had crossed the line. She stopped hugging Christina and showed her tongue to her mother. Seeing this, Mara sighed and smiled. She knew that her daughter was happy to have received a little sister, so she couldn't blame her for being so excited. "Have you eaten yet? Are you hungry?" Mara asked when she felt a little hungry herself. "I haven't eaten yet. I am hungry," said Katharina. "Yes," Ingrid said. She still felt a little out of place. She couldn't get used to the idea of having to stay in a big mansion that was worth thousands of dollars. If it weren't for the fact that she had stayed for a long time in a luxury suite along with Luan and Christina, who came later, she would be even more shaken. "I'm hungry," Christina answered sincerely. "Okay. I just hope that I'm going to cook a hot pot for us to eat," Mara said with a smile. Although she was a businesswoman, an owner of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, while she did not need to cook because of it, Mara always liked to cook for her children. She had no greater satisfaction than seeing her children eat the food she made with a smile on their faces. "Can I help you?" Ingrid volunteered. "Oh, a beautiful young woman who can cook. It seems that my son chose well." She did not complete what she was going to say and laughed a little. "I only know how to cook a little." Ingrid understood what Mara wanted to suggest. Her cheeks were flushed with embarrassment and nervousness as she looked at Mara, who was smiling at her. Katharina often helped her mother in the kitchen, but knowing that something was going on between her brother and Ingrid, she decided not to get in the way as she thought it would be easier for her mother to talk to Ingrid. In the kitchen, Ingrid was helping to wash and cut the vegetables. Mara had already washed the rice, seasoned it, and put it on the fire. She wanted to make beans, but it would take a long time, and because of that, she was making white sauce to eat with the rice. After all the vegetables were washed and cut, Mara, who finished seasoning the steak, looked at Ingrid and asked, "Ingrid, do you like someone?" Ingrid was taken by surprise. She was totally unprotected from such a question. Taking a deep breath, she answered sincerely, "Yes." Mara was glad to hear that, but she still wanted to confirm. "Is it my son?" "Yes." Ingrid knew she couldn't hide her feelings for long, and seeing Luan's mother ask this with such interest, she answered honestly. "I knew it." Contrary to what Ingrid imagined, Mara held her hands and looked genuinely happy. She even said, "I'm rooting for you both. I super support you." But, really, Ingrid didn't seem to believe what she was seeing. She worried that because she came from a humble family, she would not be compatible with Luan. Of course, yes. It seemed that Mara had realized what Ingrid was thinking and said, "It doesn't matter what family you came from. As long as my son loves you and you love him, I will support your love. But, I don't think Luan feels the same way about me," Ingrid said with her head down. "Ingrid, if he didn't like you at all, do you really believe he would bring you here and even ask me to find you a job? I know my son. Even though he says he remembers a past life, he is still the same. Although it is a little difficult to read what he is thinking, just him giving so much attention to you shows that you have a special place in his heart." Mara had a gentle smile while saying this too. Ingrid, hearing that Luan felt something for her and that she had a special place in his heart, Ingrid felt like she was up in the clouds. Her heart was beating very hard, and her face flushed with happiness. Seeing this, it became clear to Mara that Ingrid really liked her son, and it wasn't because she was after money. This made her see Ingrid in a good light, having a good impression of her. Unlike that girl named Carol, who looked like a greedy shrew who only saw her son as a thick thigh that she wanted to hold. "Okay. We have procrastinated a lot. I'm going to bread the meat again," Mara said with a smile as she dropped Ingrid's hands. "I'll help." Ingrid, although she was feeling shy, steadied herself and started to help bread the meat in breadcrumbs. Asterisk. A delicious smell spread through the house. Luan, who was sleeping, was awakened by the smell. He rubbed his eyes and stood up. Remembering that he had slept while still sweaty, and even depended on Ingrid's help, he went to his private bathroom to bathe. Minutes later, he left. After changing, he went down the stairs. Laughter and voices reached his ear. In the living room, Ingrid, Christina, Mara, and Katharina were chatting happily. Yes, that's when Carol asked, "Luan, what are you doing in Florianopolis?" Then Luan replied nonchalantly, "Because I wanted to." Ingrid very well imitated Luan and Carol's conversation the day they met at the mall. Hearing what Ingrid said, Katharina laughed a lot until her stomach hurt. She always hated that girl. Even Mara laughed quietly. Cough. Luan. Ingrid stood up suddenly when she was startled by Luan's arrival. "Did he hear what I said?" Chapter 38. Base building pills. In the living room, the girls were startled by Luan's arrival. Their reactions were similar to a cat whose tail had been stepped on, especially Ingrid's. She looked at Luan with embarrassment, afraid that he had heard what she said earlier. "It's okay. I don't care if you talk about that woman," Luan said, indifferent. It looked like he had read Ingrid's thoughts. All Ingrid said was, "Oh." She was quite surprised, and although Luan told her not to worry, Ingrid was not so bold as to continue talking about Carol. Luan approached Ingrid and patted her on the shoulder, then he put his hand on her face, making Ingrid's maiden heart race. He then said, "Why are you so surprised? Didn't I say before that woman doesn't mean anything to me anymore? Hey, my dear brother. Did you forget that we are also here?" Katharina said with a playful snort. She didn't imagine that her brother would treat them like the wind, and then start to act so intimately with Ingrid. "Oh, I didn't see you." Luan cast an indifferent look. "Bastard. Got yourself a girlfriend, and now you treat your sister like this." Katharina stood up and crossed her arms beneath her breasts, and complained. The moment she heard the word, girlfriend, Ingrid was stunned. Her eyes took on an even more dreamy look as she blushed violently. "Stop. Stop. These fights are ending our family." Mara screamed suddenly. PFF'd. Ha 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 ha. Katharina and Luan couldn't stand it and started laughing. Katharina, who laughed so hard that her stomach hurt, said breathlessly, "Mother. Your performance was terrible, but I loved it." She raised her thumb up. Christina and Ingrid, who had been startled, seeing that it was just a joke, started to laugh together, although they were more reserved. Mara blushed a little ashamed, but she returned to normal very quickly and said, "Okay, enough jokes, the food is ready. Now that your brother has arrived, let's eat." "Yes." Katharina took a few deep breaths to steady herself, and agreed. As they walked towards the dinner table, Katharina tapped her brother on the shoulder and said, "Brother, your performance was very good." "Humph. But of course," Luan snorted playfully. Only when he was with his family would he act so relaxed. Tisk. "Sure Tilda," Katharina said with a click of her tongue and smiled softly. Asterisk. March 5th, Friday. It was a hot and sunny day, a good day for swimming. In front of the Dimas mansion, the beach already had some local people sunning themselves, even some cooling off in the sea. Luan woke up to the sunlight that reflected from his window. He opened his eyes, stood up with a yawn, stretching, and went to the bathroom. Luan had promised his mother and sister that he would teach them more about cultivating the next day. It was mainly because during the day it was better to train, and also his mother and sister had just recovered. Before starting to train, the two needed to strengthen themselves. This made him want to create pills in the morning to give them. In order not to be interrupted, Luan placed a warning sign in front of the bedroom door. The pill that he intended to create was superior to others that he had created earlier, at least, in the matter of basic construction. The name of the pill itself was a base building pill. Leaving the bathroom, Luan put on comfortable clothes and took the oven that was close to the wardrobe. Inside the wardrobe there was a box. Luan took out the box and carried it to the middle of the room. Inside the box were all the medicinal herbs he had collected over the last few days. Another thing that was inside the box was the energy crystal with all the fire powers of the Xing clan. Luan intended to use the flames of the energy crystal to create the pills. This would be even more efficient, with more chances of success. Some of the medicinal herbs were weak in energy, as the world presently did not have that much heaven and earth chi. However, Luan channeled his chi in a special way, which he learned over the years, and was able to nourish medicinal herbs. He even made a bottle of pure water become spiritual water. Although the quality was poor, the result would be considered significant for the present times where it was almost impossible to find spiritual water. The base building pills consisted of just 5 ingredients, however, this did not mean that it was easy to create. Often the fewer ingredients one had, the harder it was to create a pill. Of course, the quality of the medicinal herbs was very important, as well as the quality and control of the flames that would be used. Luan specifically chose to do this just now, because he was confident of being able to create high-quality base building pills of at least mid-grade. Below that, it was not a good choice to do this, as the amount of impurity that would build up in the body would be excessive and very difficult to remove afterward. After Luan prepared and nourished the ingredients, he separated them into 10 batches. My chances of creating top base building pills is 70%. Looking at the 10 lots of herbs as well as the spiritual water, Luan analyzed it roughly, but precisely. For a second, Luan closed his eyes, remaining calm in soul and spirit. When his chi had become serene and smooth just like a boat on a day without a current, Luan opened his eyes and started preparing the pills. In the beginning, he started by slowly creating the pills in detail. It had been a long time since he had made this type of low-level pill, so he needed to do it slowly and accurately if he wanted to maintain high quality. After pouring the spiritual water into the cauldron, Luan held the fire energy crystal and began to boil the water until it bubbled. Bouncing the fire crystal on his legs, and controlling the fire through his mental power, it was then that he slapped one of the medicinal herbs with his 2 hands, crushing them all at once. If looked at by someone else, what he was doing might have seemed illogical and rude, but if one were a professional alchemist, they wouldn't be able to help but admire Luan. With this simple slap, Luan had made the herb grind in the perfect state, because when he slapped it, in his hands thousands of thin blades were made from his chi. As soon as the herb was crushed, not only was it done excellently, it also increased the quality thanks to Luan's chi that was directed through the chi blades. Opening the lid, he poured the medicinal herb into the boiler and closed it. This same process was done with the other 3 necessary medicinal herbs. Afterward, Luan returned to hold the fire energy crystal in his hand and the control, under the crystal, became even greater. The flames were condensed in a pure and gentle manner, but at the same time they danced wildly. If it weren't for Luan's self-control, he could have easily set fire to the room or even the house. Energy crystal was not easy to control, and now that it had the fire energy of more than 300 people, it was even more difficult. As it was the first time he used the flames of the fire energy crystal, the flames for a second had escaped from his control. This caused the cauldron to sway a little and the lid to shake. Dark smoke came out of the breaches in the lid. Luan took a deep breath and stabilized it soon after, but he already knew that due to this small flaw, the quality of the pills that were being created should have decreased. Like it or not, they were flames from more than 300 people and all in one place. As good of control as Luan had, it still had escaped a little from his control. Luckily, it stabilized in time before the cauldron exploded. Using his mental power, Luan tightly closed the lid and continued the process of creating the pill. He had already reached the stage that burned off the impurities of the herbs and began to fuse everything with the bubbling spiritual water. When he reached the last step, which was to divide it into parts and create the pills, Luan divided it in a total of 3 pills, since if he increased it more than that, the quality would drop due to the fact that he had made a mistake earlier. Seconds later, a muffled sound echoed in the room. Luan took a deep breath and opened the lid of the cauldron. The moment it opened, dark smoke came out roughly, leaving an unpleasant smell. However, it did not last long before being replaced by an aromatic smell of medicinal herbs. When Luan looked into the cauldron, 3 light green pills were at the bottom. Taking his hand, Luan was slightly disappointed to find one of mid-quality, but he had also managed to make 2 of superior quality, so it was not a total loss. In reality, there was no reason for Luan to be disappointed. After rethinking, he recalled that he still had 9 batches of medicinal herbs to create base-building pills. If all went well, in the end he would have approximately 20 superior base-building pills. Outside, in front of Luan's room, Mara, Luan's mother, saw the warning that her son was creating pills and didn't want to be bothered. She then warned the other 3 girls not to disturb Luan now. Since they didn't know how long it would take, Mara and the 3 girls started eating without him. Chapter 39. Your father was shot. Of the 10 batches of medicinal herbs which he had collected, Luan had no flaws among them. This was a very good achievement, considering that he was rusty in the practice of creating low-level pills. He had made 35 base-building pills, but only 10 were of a higher grade. 5 of them were mid-grade and 10 were high-grade. Tidying up the mess, then taking another shower, Luan put on a set of gray casual clothes. Leaving the room, he went down the stairs and saw his mother and sister sitting on the sofa in the living room. Ingrid and Christina were also there with them. Good morning, Luan greeted them as soon as he approached. Are you hungry? There is bread on the table and coffee in the pitcher. Looking at Luan, Mara said. Okay. He wanted to talk about the pills he created and also teach his mother and sister how to cultivate them, but on second thought, he decided to eat some first. Luan called the 4 girls into the training room and said, Mother, Katharina, I made pills that will help you improve your physique and I will also teach you a technique to cultivate your bodies. Luan, I don't want to brag, but you know that I get tired even just carrying my shopping bags. And is that something to brag about? Luan snorted playfully and said, knowing what she meant, as long as you follow what I say, even if you are weak now, I will help you become so strong that even a professional fighter will not be able to defeat you. Oh, is that serious? Why do I find it hard to believe that? Putting her hand on her chin, Katharina gave a sideways look and said suspiciously. I see. Well, since you doubt your brother here so much, maybe I shouldn't help you. Luan teased, casting an arrogant look. In an instant, at the speed of light, Katharina got up from where she was sitting. Arriving in front of Luan, she said in a downcast manner, I was just kidding, brother. You know I love you, right? She spoke flattery at the end, and kissed Luan on the cheek. Okay, but there won't be a next time, Luan said playfully. Mara, seeing this, smiled. She knew both her daughter and her son and knew that one would like to provoke the other and make whoever was close think that they were fighting. Yes, brother, I was just kidding before. Katharina pulled back a little and showed her tongue and smiled. Okay, enough joking around. Luan became serious and looked at his mother and sister and said, I will teach you both the basic technique to train your body. Until it is 5 times stronger, it is this technique that you will be using. In addition, I intend to create a formation in this room and remove all these training equipment, as they will become useless. Now, enough talk. Both of you stay in the center of the room and I will show you some movements I want you to learn. The technique that Luan started to teach to his mother and sister was the same as he taught to Christina. It was a basic body technique, but it helped create a solid foundation. In addition, he provided them the superior grade base building pill. As his mother and sister were going to start training now, he had no way of calculating how long it would take them to get 5 times stronger than an ordinary man. But he knew it wouldn't take more than a week. Almost 2 hours later, Luan taught his mother and sister the 9 movements, and then he taught them the technique. After training for 2 hours, the mother and daughter pair got tired and started to meditate while reciting the technique. As for the pill, Luan said it was better for them to get used to the technique first, and then, tomorrow, they could take the base building pill. The best body technique that was of greatest benefit to the women that Luan had with him was the one he gave to Ingrid. Now, he was also teaching it to Christina. It was a total of 36 movements, so it took more time before Christina was able to memorize the movements. She learned it fairly easily, having seen Ingrid use it before. Ingrid swallowed a base building pill after finishing the technique's movements and was sitting with her legs crossed, starting to meditate. Unlike before, she felt much more comfortable, since a soft and cozy energy spread very quickly inside her, strengthening her entire body. It was a mystical sensation that was even somewhat pleasant, which made her blush sometimes with shame. Luan paid no attention to this, not least because he had already started meditating after swallowing a base building pill. His body strength started to improve at a very fast speed. In a few minutes, he had already reached 34 times a normal man's strength with his body alone. His negative chi was improving a lot as well. Asterisk. It was night. It was dark. A car entered the Monte Cristo neighborhood looking lost. Damn. This damn GPS. Cursing while hitting his steering wheel, the man's voice was drunk. That bitch Mara. He swore for no apparent reason. He continued to curse without stopping, either from being lost or due to the woman named Mara. Damn poor ass neighborhood. Look at these houses and so many dogs. You mutts. Get out of the way. He honked angrily when he saw a pack of dogs in the middle of the road. It was at that moment that a group of teenagers who looked like a pack of ruffians stood in front of the car. What appeared to be the leader of the group held a chrome pistol with the number shaved off. He pointed the gun at the car and said in an authoritative and fierce voice, "Son of a bitch. Turn off this fucking headlight and stop fucking that horn if you don't want us to dig a hole in your fucking head." Hick. Despicable kid. At that moment the guy had already stopped the car, and got out, very drunk. Without turning off the headlight, he pointed his finger at the teenager and said incoherently, "Do you think that toy gun is going to scare me, kid? Hick. Know your place. You don't know who you're messing with. You drunk, sleazy, whoreson." Bang. Asterisk. The moment the young drug dealer was insulted, he became so angry that he pulled the trigger of his gun, which was pointed at the drunk man. Shortly after, sirens could be heard. "Damn it, Frank, the police are here. Run." Another teenager holding a gun heard the police siren and pulled the boy who shot the man, and the boys all started running through the dark alleys. Asterisk. Luan was about to lie down when his cell phone rang. Seeing that it was an unknown number, he considered not responding, but in the end, he ended up answering. "Hello, who is it?" "Mr. Luan Dimas. Your father was shot and is in the hospital." Chapter 40. Becoming CEO. My father. Luan frowned and an urge to laugh suddenly overtook him. It was laughable that that man had given Luan's number in an emergency and said he was his father. In his past life Leon Becker used that same approach to talk to him. In fact, he talked to his sister after he rejected the call. It seems that this plot has not changed. Luan knew that if he rejected it, they would call his sister, so he replied, "Okay, I'm going. Tell me the address." After hanging up, Luan went to his sister's room. Seeing that she was sleeping, he turned off her cell phone. After that, he went back to his room and slept. It was only after 3 hours that someone called him again. "Mr. Luan, are you close? Your father is really looking forward to seeing you at this difficult time." A male voice was speaking from the other end, full of disappointment since the boy's father was shot, and even then, the son didn't even visit as he said he would. "I'm on my way. My car's tire is flat. I've already called a mechanic." After saying that, he hung up. Luan smiled coldly and went back to sleep again. Luan knew that although his father was not powerful, he was far from being an ordinary man. It would take more than a bullet to kill him. Besides, if he went there, he would only wind that man up, even though it would be interesting to deceive that man, since that man believed that he would be able to deceive Luan and get his hands on his mother's money. But Luan was too lazy to go through so much work for nothing. He still had to get up early the next morning and help his sister and mother. Furthermore, because his mother would be away from the Dimas Corporation for a few days, he would suggest to his mother to leave him in charge of management as temporary CEO. There were some projects he wanted to do, and it was a good time for that. Almost an hour later they called Luan, and the moment he answered, the same man's voice sounded impatient. He said in a scolding voice, "Mr. Luan, where the hell are you? I'll pick you up if you still can't fix the tire. You are obliged to be here to help your father in such a difficult time. Oh, how much is he paying you to be so emphatic? You almost even convinced me. By the way, have you ever thought about acting in a movie? If you do, I will definitely watch it. Let me know if you ever have the chance." After saying that, Luan hung up the phone. The man on the other end of the line was seething with rage. He did not expect that he would be so insulted even though everything Luan had said was true. How did a young man see through him, and not for a second did he suspect? "Okay, I've played enough. Now I'm going to sleep," Luan murmured as he placed his cell phone on a small table beside the bed. The next morning, Luan woke up and this time did not create pills since the ones he had were enough, and he had also run out of medicinal herbs. After eating breakfast with the 4 girls, he went to the gym room. As he had said before, the training equipment was useless, so he started to remove it and put it in front of his house with a donation sign. Christina and Ingrid helped him move all the equipment. Mara and Katharina, on the other hand, were not strong enough since they had only started training yesterday. However, smaller things they were able to carry. After all this was done, the room became more spacious. The echo of their voices could be heard, the place was so big and empty. "Mom, I have something I want to talk to you about." Luan looked at her seriously as he spoke. "Is it about your father?" Mara bit her lower lip, afraid that it had something to do with him since she also got the call from the hospital but had told them they were calling the wrong number. "No, I don't want to speak about that man," Luan said nonchalantly. "Mom, do you think I don't know that this is one more of his tricks to try to succeed in approaching us? He's a fool if he thinks he's going to deceive us with that. Besides, Mom, he is not an ordinary person. Although not as strong as me and Ingrid, he is at least as strong as Christina. Even if he was shot, it would only pierce his skin a little at most. But it doesn't make sense. When I pointed a gun at him, he was clearly scared," Mara said, uncertainly. "Good going, Mom." Katharina raised her thumb up, thinking that her mother had done right sending that man away with a gun pointed at him. "Isn't that logical? You can't compare your weapon to someone else's. And I bet it was a .22 caliber pistol. That kind of weapon wouldn't even easily kill an ordinary man, let alone that man," Luan said nonchalantly. "That's right. I heard that he was shot in a slum. Very likely it was just a rusty weapon that those marginals got in a clandestine way," Mara nodded. "Luan, did you come into my room and turn off my cell phone?" Katharina overheard her mother's and brother's conversation, prompting her to ask suspiciously. "Yes, I knew if I didn't do that, they would call you. Since I didn't want to disturb your sleep, I turned off your cell phone," Luan replied. "You were afraid that I would go there, right?" Katharina crossed her arms around her chest and said, dissatisfied, "Let me say, even if he begged on his knees, I will never forgive all that he did. I don't even consider that man to be my father. For me, he is no different than a beggar one sees on the street." She then emphasized, "No, in fact, even a beggar is better than that man." Okay, it was my mistake. You don't have to be so defensive." Luan smiled wryly. He knew that his sister's arrogant way of speaking was a defense mechanism that she often used to protect herself. "Mom, you don't have to worry about that man. I never considered him as my father and I never will. Even my and Katharina's both certificates don't have his name on them," Luan said. When he and his sister were born, only the name of Luan Dimas was registered in their affiliation. At that time Leon Becker had not known that Mara was heir to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. "I'm glad you understand that." Mara snorted playfully, and then said coldly, "Who does he think he is? I raised you two alone with a lot of love and affection, and this man now tries to get closer and wants you to believe that it is not out of interest in my fortune. Hey, he is very foolish if he thinks he is going to be able to fool someone with such low tricks." Christina did not expect Luan and Katharina to have such a miserable father. Of course, it was not like her father was any better since he had wanted to use her as a sacrifice. Ingrid already sympathized with this story, since the same had happened to her, and her father ran away when her mother had 2 children to support. Of course, her mother was not the heir to a wealthy family, so her father went to buy cigarettes and never came back. "So son, what did you want to speak about before if it wasn't that?" Mara asked, curious. "Mom, can I take over as CEO of the company for as long as you are going to stay home training? Luan went straight to the subject. I don't see a problem, but do you know how to run a company? You know that it is not easy, since if you become CEO of Dimas Corp, you will have to deal with many other companies that are below the corporation, Mara warned him seriously. Yes, I understand, Luan said seriously. I have studied a lot about matters related to the company, and also about the management of the company. Just give me a chance. I promise to show results in 1 week. This was child's play for Luan. Before going back in time, he had built an empire and was proclaimed as an emperor with more than 50 million people underneath him. Okay, I'll give you this chance. If there is no result in a week, forget the result. If at least there is no loss, I will be happy and leave the companies in your care. I just want you to take this very seriously since Dimas Corporation will be yours and your sister's in the future, Mara said. Mom, rest assured, I'm going to take this very seriously, Luan said resolutely. Okay, I'll go with you to the company's headquarters and announce you as CEO. Mara saw that her son was serious about this, and resolved to give him a chance to prove his worth. She also looked at Ingrid and said, Ingrid, why don't you go along and help Luan as your secretary? Ingrid was a little surprised, but then broke out of her stupor and replied, Yes, I promise to do my best. Hee, I liked your enthusiasm. Katharina put her hand on Ingrid's shoulder and said with a smile. Chapter 41. Voting. Luan took his green Lamborghini Urus and went to the company headquarters with his mother, sister, Ingrid, and Christina. Luan, I already made an emergency meeting. Know that today I will only be announcing you as CEO of Dimas Corporation. Tomorrow is Sunday, so you will only start working as CEO on Monday. At that time, take time to study the projects that were being contracted and the new proposals that were launched. But before accepting any proposal, talk to me. I know I said I would trust you, but this is the first time that you will be dealing with something like this. You don't need to be vain by wanting to do everything yourself. Know that I will always be at your side for any questions you have, said Luan's mother, who sat next to him in the front seat of the car. Yes, I fully understand your concern, mother. I will not act hastily. Each and every proposal I'll make, I will consult with you, Luan said seriously, still looking at the road. Good. Mara seemed satisfied with his response and was silent. But, Luan, Katharina asked suddenly, when did you study this subject? This was a doubt that even Mara had, but something told her that it was related to the past life that Luan said he had lived. In those days that I spent almost 1 month away, and also in my past life, Luan said, in my past life, I was once emperor. Although not entirely the same, the role of an emperor is similar to that of a CEO. Of course, I will still count on my mother's help, but seeing as she will be busy these days, I want to help as much as possible. Past life. This is something hard to believe exists, but there is no way I can refute it, since if not, everything you did and are doing now would not make sense. Mara sighed. She was still having a little trouble believing it completely. I understand, and I suppose I would also have a hard time believing it if it hadn't happened to me, Luan said. So I just ask you to trust me and observe everything I say and do, and then, in time, I will prove that everything I said is true. Okay. After that, Mara said nothing more until she arrived at the company's headquarters building. As they were riding in a 3 million Rias car, it drew a lot of attention, but seeing the entrance to the Dimas Corporation building, people thought it was normal to see such a vehicle here since many tycoons worked there. At the reception, the secretary saw Mara and said respectfully to her boss, Good morning, President Mara. Good morning, Mara said with a thin smile and brought Luan and the girls to the elevator. Before the elevator operator, who was a woman wearing a black suit over a white dress shirt, could ask which floor, Mara said, 40th floor. Asterisk. Arriving on the 40th floor, Mara guided them to her room and said, Luan and I are going to the meeting room for now. Wait here until we get back. Okay. The 3 girls nodded obediently. Mara adjusted the tie on Luan's gray blazer and said, Come on. Yes. Luan followed her into the meeting room. When Mara entered, everyone stood up and said in unison, with great admiration, President. Okay. You can sit down. Mara gestured with her hand and went to the chair at the far end of the table. Everyone inside the room looked at Luan in a strange way, without understanding why he was here and why they had been summoned to an emergency meeting. Was it related to the heir of Dimas Corp? They couldn't help wondering why Luan was also here. President Mara, this is One of the shareholders was confused by the emergency meeting she had called and even more when he saw Luan entering with her. He looked at Luan while suggesting that she explain why he is also in the meeting room. Okay. I will be brief. I made this emergency meeting because I will be leaving my son temporarily as CEO of Dimas Corporation. Mara went straight to the point, which ended up dumbfounding everyone who had been summoned. After all, Luan was just an 18-year-old young adult who hadn't even gone to college yet, and still, this woman wanted him to become the CEO. And not CEO of any company, but of Dimas Corporation. It was hard to believe. They started to think she must have gone crazy. This cannot happen. The second largest shareholder hit the table in protest. Although he respected Mara, he refused to accept that her son, who barely emerged from the frauds, would take over as CEO of the company's headquarters. If it were any other company affiliated with the headquarters, he would agree. But this was too much. Mara looked at Ricardo, who was the man who spoke before, then she looked at everyone inside the room and said, "Okay, let's keep wasting time, let's go back. Whoever is in favor of my son staying as CEO, raise your hand." I approve. I approve. There were 35 people inside the room, 20 of them raised their hands. 10 were neutral, only 5 were against. This proved how solid Mara's base was within the company. After all, if Luan were to mess something up, they might as well blame Mara later and also not stay on Luan's bad side if he could end up doing something productive. In addition, Luan was heir to Dimas Corporation. Sooner or later he would run the company and then something more. Mara looked at Ricardo. She did not try to judge him for acting like this. After all, she understood where he was coming from. If not, consider this meeting closed. Monday my son, Luan Dimas, will officially take over as CEO. Okay. Ricardo had to swallow his frustration. Even if he wanted to go against it, what could he do? If he continued to hit the same key, it would just give the same result, and he could end up on Luan's bad side. I will be in your care, Luan said respectfully. Although he would be the boss, he didn't want to appear disrespectful and pampered. In addition, he would end up working with these people, so it was good to make a good impression. Of course, if even after he showed results, if any of them tried to go against him, that was a totally different matter. After Mara and Luan left, many of the shareholders remained in the meeting room, unwilling to leave. They just hoped that with Luan's arrival, it wouldn't harm the company. Did it end that quickly? Katharina thought they would have to wait at least 2 hours. She did not expect her mother and brother to return in less than 30 minutes. Yes, I didn't have much to say, Maria replied nonchalantly. That part was the easy bit, but she knew if Luan was not able to show results, even worse, if there was a drop in the shares of the companies, this could become such a problem that even she would not be able to let him continue as CEO. Chapter 42. Being followed. Luan left the Dimas Corporation building with his mother and the 3 girls and eventually drove out onto the road. The building was in the city center, so he needed to take the highway back to Juror Internacional Beach. The highway was very busy at that time. There were many cars close by. However, Luan was suspicious of a particular car that seemed to be following him. From time to time, he saw an all-black car acting suspiciously, and with his enhanced vision, he could see through the dark film of the car and saw one of the 4 men in the car point in their direction. It might have only been a coincidence, but Luan remained alert. The car quickly turned in a roundabout while Luan controlled the steering wheel. He accelerated and saw the car in front slow down. When he was about to slow down, his red eyes spotted the same car as before in his rear view mirror. That black Jaguar. Luan had already passed some crossings, but the black Jaguar was still following him. Luan's mind flashed with the possibility of a stalker, so he quickly thought of something. He fixed his eyes on the rearview mirror for a long time. The car that had come from the intersection earlier gradually slowed down while the car behind him continued to chase him. We are being followed. Do not look back or you will warn them, Luan warned the others. Okay, but what do you intend to do? Mara asked, concerned. She was not afraid for Luan and Ingrid, since they had displayed how strong they were, but she, Katharina, and Christina would still hardly be unharmed if an accident happened. Don't worry, Mom. As long as I'm here, nothing bad is going to happen. I'm just going to lure them to a less busy place and then. Well, wait and see, Luan said with an indifferent smile. Now you are acting mysteriously with your mother. Mara snorted playfully. She felt happy in her heart for having such a reliable child. Also, after she had heard what he just said, For some reason all of her previous worries were gone like the wind. Brother, are you going to kill them? Katharina shivered at the thought. She led a normal life, and the thought of seeing her brother kill someone was not at all pleasant. No, but they are not going to get away with it, Luan responded nonchalantly and added, besides if they were sent by who I'm thinking they are, there are some things I want you and my mother to see. Seeing that even when he left the highway and entered a rural area, the black jaguar was still following him, a gleam passed through Luan's eyes as a scornful smile curved his lips. He saw that the street was empty and stopped the car. You can get out, Luan said to his mother and the girls. The moment they left, Mara and the three girls saw the black jaguar coming towards them at a reduced speed. It was then they saw Luan extend his two hands and a strong wind came out of his hands. Whoosh! Asterisk. Sounds of wind blowing echoed and the black jaguar spun on the road, looking like a Beyblade. Before the car hit the wall of a house, a strong wind had stopped the car. Wait here, Luan said and started walking towards the black jaguar. Inside, the car was a mess. The four men in the car had some bruises on their heads from hitting them against the car window. Get out, Luan said loudly. The minds of the four men were in disarray. They had not yet recovered, but upon hearing Luan's voice and when they saw the young man with white hair and red eyes looking at them, their bodies involuntarily shuddered. However, when they gripped their guns, they felt more powerful and fearless. They got out of the car while pointing the guns at Luan. Boy, be nice and get inside the Jaguar. Otherwise, we will shoot, one of the men in black, who had a shaved head, threatened. Are you threatening me with these toys? Luan frowned, and in the next instant, the four men were moaning on the floor, all their arms were broken, making the four men cry out in pain. Luan moved so fast that neither Mara nor the three girls were able to keep up. It was as if he hadn't moved, and with cracking bones, the four men fell instantly to the floor. Approaching them, Luan saw disguised fear in their eyes. It was as if they were looking at a freak. Of course, Luan didn't care about the look they gave him, and he put his hand on the head of three of them and said, "Sleep." The bald man was the only one who stayed awake. He looked at Luan and almost peed in his pants. He had never been so scared before. What are you going to do with us? Luan didn't answer. He just put his hand on the man's head, and in the next moment, Luan's eyes went black and his aura went white. When Luan did this, the man's eyes seemed unfocused, and he started to act robotically. Luan waved to his mother and the three girls to approach and asked the man, "What was the intention of you guys when following me?" Mara, Katharina, Ingrid, and Christina held their breath for fear of not hearing. Kidnap Katharina. The man's voice sounded robotic as he said it. Why, and what did you intend to do when you kidnapped Katharina? Luan asked. We received $100,000 as payment for kidnapping her, and we would receive another $400,000 if we pretended we were able to her, and then the person who hired us would show up to save her. The man replied robotically. My God. Mara covered her mouth and her body trembled. She couldn't help but imagine it and was terrified. Worse off was Katharina. She was shaking with fear when she heard what the man had said. She couldn't imagine who would make such an evil scheme against her. And who is this person? Luan made sure not to kill this man. I don't know the name, but I know his appearance since we received a photo of him for when he would show up to save Katharina. He is tall, with approximately 190 centimeters in height, a well-shaved beard with short blonde hair, and light brown eyes. Next, the man pulled out a photo from one of his pockets. Hey, as I suspected, Luan's anger had reached the skies. That bastard. Mara cried out in anger. She had never felt so outraged at that man before. My father. Katharina knew that man was no good, but she didn't think he would go so far as to want to create trauma in her and then become the knight in shining armor who saved her. He must still be in the hospital, right? Luan murmured with a strong intention to kill. Luan, as wrong as he is, you can't kill him. Not because I want him to live, but if he were to die, his family would not remain silent. Although he is a louse, his family is not so simple. You said yourself that he comes from a family with powers. Theirs would be even worse, Mara said, concerned for her son's safety. Don't worry, Mom, I know what to do. Although I will not kill him, it does not mean that they is the only way and I have no alternative, Luan said ominously. It's not just pills that can help you get stronger that I know how to make, after all. Are you going to poison him, brother? Katharina said angrily. I'd be totally for it. This bastard, he doesn't deserve to have a happy life. Even I, who am his daughter, he planned to do something so evil. It is not a poison I intend to use, but something that could be considered worse, Luan said nonchalantly. It's called the unlucky pill. Whoever eats this pill will always be unlucky in everything he does, and even worse, after each month, the chance of bad luck becomes more dangerous, to the point of the one who ingested it wanting to kill themselves. And the more time passes, the worse it gets. After that, even if he wanted to plan something against someone, everything would turn against him. The arrival of a new year can bring us a great diversity of feelings. For those who had a good year, optimism can gain more strength, with the expectation that the next one will continue on the same path. Those who have gone through many difficulties, on the other hand, receive a new chance to leave their problems in the past and renew hope for a more pleasant future. Having a difficult year is not exclusive to a few families. Whatever the reason, adversity accompanies the lives of many people, and it is not a very easy task to embrace positivity when we are experiencing so much adversity. But perhaps if we think about how good it is to live free from problems, our strength will increase and optimism will be part of a larger portion of our time. We will enter the new year with renewed hope, with free space for happiness, moving further and further away from everything that brings sadness or hinders our prosperity. Chapter 43. Date Part 1. After everything that happened, Luan destroyed all the evidence of what had happened and made the men in the black suits forget everything they saw. Of course, he only fixed the arm and manipulated the mind of the one who was going to drive to crash the car off a cliff. The reason? Well, Luan wouldn't forgive anyone who tried to hurt his family. Now, what if they survived even after falling off a cliff? It was not something that Luan would worry about. Having nothing else to do in that place, Luan, his mother, and the girls returned to the mansion. Due to the fright she had received, Katharina was more motivated to become strong. Today was the day that she could use the base building pill. Without wasting time, she trained using the 9 movements of the technique for almost 3 hours and then sat on the floor with her legs crossed and swallowed the base building pill. Mara ended up doing almost the same thing as her daughter and also swallowed the base building pill and began to perform the meditation technique. Gradually, the energy of the pill started to strengthen all of the parts of her body as she trained. Muscle, bones, organs, and skin, everything started to strengthen at an alarming rate. Before she and Katharina realized, the pair of mother and daughter had already broken their limits, becoming now 5 times stronger than an ordinary man. Ingrid also broke her limit, being now 21 times stronger than an ordinary man. Christina had already broken the limit, being 8 times stronger than an ordinary man. Even though Luan had had a head start, he managed to strengthen himself to the point where he was now, incredibly, at 35 times stronger than an ordinary man. Besides, he still had his negative chi, which if he used it together with his strength, he would be almost 46 times stronger. It was close to noon when Katharina and Mara had finished training and went to bathe. Luan, Ingrid, and Christina were still meditating. Just a few minutes later, Christina also finished meditating and Mara gave her a towel and a set of clothes for her to bathe. Asterisk. It was close to 1800. Luan was wearing a black t-shirt and dark green Italian-style blazer and designer pants made of black silk and black sneakers. His hair was slightly disheveled, tossed to the right. Ingrid, I'm going for a walk. Do you want to go with me? Luan invited her. Luan was waiting for Ingrid's answer in silence. Quote. Ingrid felt shy and embarrassed by the invitation. The reason why she was shy was she had been in the presence of Mara, Katharina, and Christina when receiving such an invitation. She lowered her head, afraid to look him in the eye, and said meekly, yes. Before Luan could say anything in return, Ingrid ran to the second floor while saying, wait a minute, I'll change my clothes. Oh, he asked her out like that, not bad. Katharina raised her thumb to her brother. Son, I know you know, but if you are going to do something like. Mara turned her head toward Christina, who was there too, and tried to be as subtle as possible. Play football. Don't forget to wear football boots. Luan knew that his mother was thinking too much about it, however, he did not bother to explain. Christina blinked her innocent eyes, and wondered where Luan and Ingrid would go to play football and who they would even be able to play with. Maybe they'd play on the beach. She remembered seeing from the balcony of the mansion that at that time there were some people playing football. But do you need to wear boots on the beach? She was confused. Although Katharina had never dated before, she still understood what her mother was trying to imply. She blushed a little while imagining it and shook her head, getting rid of those images. Almost half an hour later, Ingrid came down the stairs. She looked in Luan's direction with a slight flush on her cheeks. She wore a beautiful red dress that revealed a bit of her perfect white breasts and that extended to her knees. The high heels she wore made her body even more beautiful, looking like she had an even bigger butt than normal. Luan looked at her for a few seconds and said, "You looked great in that red dress." Ingrid suddenly realized why women liked to receive praise from the person they love. It was as if her body had a natural and indescribable desire to be noticed and praised by the person she loved herself. Could it be that her body yearned for the love and favor of the person she loved? Thinking about it, Ingrid's heartbeat began beating even faster. A feeling of shyness bubbled up in her heart. It was difficult to describe the complexity of what seemed like excitement, affection, and also longing. However, Ingrid could be sure of one thing. She felt a kind of sweet happiness that she could not describe in her heart. It was like she drank hot chocolate to quench her thirst in the summer. The indescribable sensation was as beautiful as the one she felt when she discovered she was in love. Leaving her mind, Ingrid replied shyly, "Thank you." Luan's lips curved in a rare smile. "We are leaving. Bye mother, sister, and little sister." Luan rubbed Christina's head gently and said goodbye to them. Leaving, Luan and Ingrid went to the garage and he opened the door for Ingrid to enter the green Lamborghini Urus. "Thanks," Ingrid thanked him as she got in the car. Luan went to the other side and sat in the driver's seat. When the car started, the garage opened and the car started to move. As soon as they were about to leave the garage, Ingrid couldn't help asking, "Where are we going?" "To a place called J Bistro. It is a restaurant not far from here," Luan replied. "Oh." Ingrid took a deep breath and looked away from the window, resting her palm on her chin while avoiding making eye contact with Luan. This is a date, right? In her mind, the girl inside her was elated to be having a date with the man she loved, but she tried not to show it. Minutes later, Luan drove into the J Bistro restaurant parking lot. Helping Ingrid out of the car, he continued to hold her hand as they walked towards the restaurant entrance. "Thanks." Ingrid felt exceptionally sweet and for the first time in her life, she felt like a princess from a fairy tale. "You're welcome," Luan said. His curved, red eyes looked very beautiful with his long eyelashes blinking naturally. The moment Ingrid and Luan entered, the receptionist at J Bistro was stunned. Luan and Ingrid's beauty was out of the ordinary, they were just perfect. Incredibly perfect. Along the way, some people in the restaurant spotted Luan and Ingrid. Everyone then turned to look in their direction. Before the receptionist could receive them, the manager of J Bistro appeared, and rubbing his hands together, he said with a wide smile, "Welcome, distinguished customers. Please allow me to take you to the table that Mr. Dimas booked." Many were amazed at this scene, but the moment they heard the last name of the client who had booked a table, everyone could not help but let out a breath of admiration and desire to know the one with the last name Dimas better. It was easy to guess now why the manager of J Bistro was being so polite. Many were able to recognize right away that white hair and red eyes that was the distinguishing mark of the Dimas Corporation heir. But was he originally so handsome and elegant? Many began to wonder. Before, rumors said he was just a playboy who just wanted to fool around and never took things seriously. It was not surprising that these people were shocked by Luan's refined and elegant appearance that conveyed an indifferent air. "Okay." Luan nodded matter-of-factly. Ingrid, on the other hand, was not used to this type of treatment and was feeling a little nervous. Her hands trembled slightly, and that was when she remembered that she was still holding Luan's hand and lowered her head in a timid gesture. At the end of the corridor, there was a staircase. The manager took them to the second floor where it was calmer and more refined. There were round tables with a white towel and white and black chairs, which looked very comfortable. The table that Luan had reserved was on the second floor balcony, near the window facing the sea. In that part of the balcony, there were two chandeliers, casting a low light that created a romantic mood, and in the background slow music played, but not too loud, which allowed the customers to have a pleasant meal. Releasing his grasp from her hand, Luan pulled the chair out for Ingrid to sit down. Despite feeling a little loss when she let go of Luan's hand, Ingrid felt as if in a dream with Luan doing all this, it all felt so good for her. She went to sit and Luan pushed the chair forward a little. Luan sat on the other side of the table facing Ingrid. "Feel free to order if you like. The waiter is here for you," the manager said in a polite and flattering way. He once again rubbed his hands before bowing and leaving. After the waiter delivered the menu, Luan looked over it briefly and already chose what he would like. "Please bring me grilled lobster with homemade linguine and a Chateau Beaucastel Chateauneuf du Pape 1989 wine." "I want the same thing." Ingrid was undecided on her choice and ended up closing the menu and decided to copy Luan. In the end, She thought the waiter might have misunderstood her, and ended up specifying herself. I mean, please bring me grilled lobster with homemade linguine. One moment, please. The waiter made a perfect arc as he bowed towards them and left. Chapter 44. Date Part 2. After the wine had arrived, Ingrid took some. It was the first time where she drank such an expensive wine. Other than now, she was not much of a drinker when it came to alcoholic beverages, but today she felt like taking a little. She had to admit that it was better than she imagined. Are all wines this good, or is it just this one that is very good? Ingrid asked herself. She then tasted some of the grilled lobster. Luan drank some wine and looked towards the young girl in front of him. She was very cute as she ate slowly, her cheeks slightly pink after having drunk some of the wine. Ingrid finished chewing and her blue eyes sparkled as she tasted the grilled lobster. She closed her eyes briefly, then took the wine glass and drank some more. She was surprised at how well this wine paired with the grilled lobster. It was a very good combination. Afterward, Ingrid rested her left hand on the table and her right palm on her chin and stared at Luan. She smiled softly and asked, "Are you attracted to me as a friend or something else?" Luan put the glass down and set it on the table and looked at the beautiful blonde woman with blue eyes who had asked him such a straightforward question. Perhaps because Luan was taking a few seconds to answer, it made Ingrid sober up again, and the fear of receiving the answer she was not wishing for made her fear and regret the question she had just asked. "What would your reaction be if I said I like you?" Luan responded with an enigmatic expression, making it difficult to say what he was going through his head. When she heard that, Ingrid's heart skipped a beat. She was not expecting him to answer with a question, and it could be either positive or negative depending on whether he was serious or not. But knowing him a little, she believed he asked that question because he really liked her, or maybe it was her most sincere wish to want to believe it. "I would be very happy if that is true." Ingrid swallowed all her insecurity and fear and responded while trying to see Luan's reaction. Although Luan didn't show a big reaction when he smiled, it made Ingrid's heart accelerate, but she felt disappointed in the next moment, with Luan's ambiguous response. "Oh, that's good. Does that mean he admits to liking me?" Ingrid was about to pull her hair out. But she just pouted and turned her wine glass over and said, "More." Luan smiled again and filled the glass for her. With the current strength of his chi, Luan would be able to get the alcohol to pass for her. For that reason, he saw no problem, even if Ingrid got drunk. And that was what was happening. Ingrid's cheeks became more pink and her eyes became brighter. She supported her elbow on the table while her palm supported her chin and stared at Luan, swirling the little wine that was left in her glass. After eating all the lobster and drinking the whole bottle of wine, Luan asked for the bill and paid so they could leave. Ingrid, although she was a little drunk, was not so extreme. She was still able to walk alone, although she felt that everything was slow. "It was a pleasure to receive you. Come back whenever you want." The manager, seeing that Luan was leaving, went to the restaurant door to say goodbye to them while saying some words of flattery. Outside, Luan took Ingrid's hand as he walked towards the garage. Ding! Asterisk. Luan unlocked the car and was about to open the car door for Ingrid to enter, when suddenly, she opened her arms and pulled him into her embrace. Her cherry lips searched awkwardly in a stir before kissing Luan emotionally. It was as if she could express how deeply she was in love with him just by doing this. Luan confessed to himself that it took him by surprise. After mere seconds of reflection, he returned the hug and kiss. He reached out and placed his hand on Ingrid's hair next to her ear, unconsciously, and then tucked her hair behind her ear, which revealed her smooth and delicate face. The kiss lasted almost 20 minutes. Ingrid was out of breath and her drunken state seemed to have deepened further. She pulled her head away from Luan just a little and stared at his handsome face and seductive red eyes. I love. Before Ingrid could finish what she was going to say, Luan put his index finger on her cherry lips and said, "Leave that thought for once you're sober." Ingrid pouted and rejected what Luan said strongly, "But I am sober. Hey, I know how to make the alcohol go away. How about I do it, and then, you tell me?" Luan said with a giggle. "You don't have to do that." Ingrid hugged Luan's waist tightly and put her head on his chest and was silent after that. "Everyone is watching us. Shall we go back?" Luan rubbed his hand on her head gently, as he asked softly. Ingrid didn't respond directly, she just rubbed her face across his chest. For a moment, Luan thought about making the alcohol dissipate, but on second thought, he thought it would only make her feel ashamed. And he himself didn't care that some people were watching them from a distance. Instead of going home, what do you think about taking a walk with me on the beach? Luan changed his approach. Ingrid's eyes lit up when she looked up at him and nodded in confirmation as if she'd heard a great idea. After that, Ingrid got into the front passenger seat and Luan went to the driver's seat. Starting the car, he headed out of the garage. It was night and the road was quiet. Shortly, Luan had arrived near the Dimas mansion and stopped the car near the beach. Getting out of the car, he opened the door for Ingrid to get out. Ingrid knew they were going to walk on the beach, and so she left her high heels in the car. Hand in hand, Luan and Ingrid walked along the beach. The moonlight reflected off the sea, making everything look enchanting. How beautiful, Ingrid commented, admiring the view. Luan nodded. The two walked until they reached the water. Luan used his chi to avoid wetting his sneakers. Prack. Asterisk. Near the reflection of the moon, something strange started to happen. In that specific spot, the waves started to get agitated, and just above the water, a crack in the space there started to appear. It was distant, but Luan was able to see the whole process clearly. Has it started? Luan exclaimed in his mind, surprised. After all, there were still a few months to go before the third awakening was going to happen. So why did a crack appear in space from somewhere hidden? Luan, are you seeing that too? Ingrid was more surprised than Luan. Although she was in a drunken state, her senses were superior to that of an ordinary person. She was able to see an opening in space, something that was only seen in films and drawings. To make it easy to understand, this is a portal that leads to a separate dimension. If we go into that, there are great chances of getting rare and ancient treasures, however, it can be risky. Although there might also be no danger. What Luan didn't tell her was that this should only have happened 1 month before the third awakening. Oh, Ingrid was stunned by this. She then asked him, concerned, Luan, do you intend to go in there? Luan put his hand on her head and made the alcohol go away and replied, I don't know yet. These are usually open for a maximum of 24 hours. And without knowing the level of danger this poses, there is no way I can take such a chance. The moment Ingrid lost the effects of the alcohol, the embarrassment made her blush, but she courageously continued to hold Luan's hand and listen to what he said. She also understood that there were more important things now to be discussed. Do you have a way to find out the level of danger? Ingrid asked, after thinking. Yes, I just need to get closer, Luan replied. Can I go too? She looked at him when she asked him that. Okay. Luan nodded. Ingrid initially thought they were going to swim, but then she saw that as they walked towards the fissure, their feet touched the water, but did not sink. Nervously, she looked towards the sand of the beach where there were some people and was afraid of them seeing what was going on. However, she soon discovered that it seemed that they had not seen her and Luan walking under the water. You don't have to think about it too much. Luan seemed to have guessed her concern, and said, I'm using an optical illusion trick, making you and myself invisible to anyone who looks in our direction. And so the two of them continued walking toward the spatial fissure. Chapter 45. Blood Forest. After seeing the crack he and Ingrid had approached, Luan frowned briefly. I'm being pulled, Ingrid said in an aggravating tone. She felt a strong pull as she approached the crack. Let's go back. Luan didn't wait for a moment and started to retreat with Ingrid. But who could have imagined that the fissure would expand and spread out in their direction instead? Even if they wanted to escape, it was too late now. Somehow, they were swallowed up by the fissure and passed through a dark passage until they found themselves in a red forest. Ingrid was feeling dizzy, leaning on Luan's shoulder to keep from falling. She looked from side to side and what she saw was a blood-red forest. Everything was red. The leaves of the trees, the plants, everything. Below Ingrid's feet there was red water which looked more like blood. When she raised her foot a little, she noticed that it actually looked like blood or something like that. Are we inside the crack? Ingrid was feeling a little scared. This place looked very sinister, but she just didn't panic because Luan was with her. This is a forest of blood, Luan said. Stay alert. There may be carnivorous animals here. So, this is really blood? She was asking as she pointed to the red liquid on the floor. It's a lake of blood, Luan replied and walked under the blood-red canopy of leaves across the crimson soil. Wait. Luan prevented Ingrid from stepping on a flower. Yes. Ingrid was startled, thinking she did something wrong. This flower that you almost stepped on is very useful for creating pills. I want it, Luan said. Oh, only now did Ingrid understand. Luan crouched down and carefully removed the flower. The biggest problem was that he had nothing with which to carry it. That's when he took off his blazer and made it out of a bag, as he hoped to get more stuff from this place to make pills. We need to find the exit. When someone enters the opening of the crack, it tends to change the position of the exit, but I can feel the energy of the crack, and it is not far. Even before Ingrid asked, Luan explained. Ingrid, who was looking around trying to find the exit from this place, heard what Luan told her and turned towards him and said with a sigh, I see. That's why I couldn't see the crack regardless of where I looked. Caution. Luan clutched Ingrid to his embrace and leapt from where they were standing. Quote. Ingrid was confused. She thought she had almost stepped on another rare flower again, but that's when she realized that she had been picked up and carried, trapped in Luan's embrace. Everything happened very fast. Luan had already felt the presence of a spotted hyena but wanted to let Ingrid experiment for herself and improve her senses, but it seems that she still needed more training. Seeing that it had missed its target, the red-eyed spotted hyena howled looking up at the red sky, and the sounds of footsteps were heard. Wah! Ingrid was scared. It was the first time she had seen this type of savage attack. Seeing a pack of spotted hyenas gathering around, Ingrid was scared. She was still a normal girl. Although she was stronger than normal people, she had never faced anything like this before. The spotted hyenas laughed as they surrounded their prey and were about to attack. Stay focused. Don't be afraid. The strength of these spotted hyenas is no more than 15 times stronger than ordinary men. However, don't let yourself be bitten, as these hyenas' teeth are very sharp, Luan said, explaining to her. Okay. Ingrid forced herself to swallow her nervousness and prepared to fight the spotted hyenas. Ingrid was not stupid. She could understand that if Luan wanted to, he could kill all these spotted hyenas alone. However, he did not do this because he wanted her to learn to protect herself. He wanted Ingrid to be able to fight alone, even when he wasn't around. While the spotted hyenas howled showing their sharp teeth, Ingrid prepared for the fight and made her move. Using the trees to her advantage, Ingrid chose mainly to stay not too close or too far from their trunks to avoid being attacked on all sides by the spotted hyenas. When a spotted hyena jumped towards her, she used one of the movements of the body technique, giving a spin with her foot, grabbing the jaw of the spotted hyena's mouth. Bang! The body of the spotted hyena, which weighed almost 70 kilos, flew towards a tree, breaking the tree, and then fell to the ground, shaking a little, until it stopped moving. Ingrid didn't even have time to breathe when two other spotted hyenas jumped in her direction. She did a backflip, and with her 2 feet, Ingrid hit the head and stomach of the 2 hyenas. Bang! Bang! Asterisk. The 2 spotted hyenas fell heavily to the ground but did not die. However, Ingrid noticed that she lost the protection of the trees when she left from the position she was in before. Since she somersaulted backwards, she was not so close to the trees anymore, so it was easy for the spotted hyenas to surround her. Ingrid was now about to be attacked by 4 other spotted hyenas. It was at that moment that Luan put his blazer on the floor, which he had placed all the things he could find in the forest of blood inside, and moved silently. In Ingrid's eyes, Luan was like a poisonous anaconda in the water, attacking in a flash and slaughtering his prey. The movement was graceful and agile, like a professional assassin who was born to kill. One by one, the spotted hyenas were killed by each punch and kick from Luan. In seconds, they were all turned into corpses. Thanks, Ingrid said gratefully. Luan nodded matter-of-factly. This was not at all problematic for him. In fact, he was very interested in the bones of these animals. Ingrid, watching Luan dismantle the spotted hyenas with his bare hands, was shocked. She asked, "Why are you doing this, Luan?" The bones of these animals are very nutritious. They are very useful for creating pills and formations, Luan responded and continued to dismantle the spotted hyenas. He wished at the time to have a knife, but since he didn't, he used his hands initially, and took one of the bones of a spotted hyena and modeled it to look like a knife. Using his chi, Luan made the bone even sharper than an obsidian knife. A few minutes later, Luan finished dismantling the spotted hyenas, stacking them in his blazer and using his chi to get rid of the blood on his hands. Luan said, "Let's keep walking. We are not far from the exit." Yes. Ingrid nodded and added, "In fact, I feel like I'm stronger inside this place. When I was fighting the spotted hyenas, I realized that it was easier for me to move and use my strength." Luan was surprised to hear this since he himself felt no difference being in that place. After thinking about it, he said, "If you notice anything different, let me know." Yes, Ingrid nodded. The spotted hyenas were not the only animals that Luan and Ingrid saw along the way. Hart and rabbits, as well as squirrels and even snakes were seen. However, due to Luan and Ingrid's aura that they mainly couldn't control properly, most of the creatures fled when they felt their presence. But their path was far from being smooth. Something had appeared in front of them which even surprised Luan. Chapter 46. Altar. What appeared in front of them was a lion that looked at Luan and Ingrid in a predatory way, yet at the same time, cautiously. He appeared to be several times smarter than the spotted hyenas. This might be a little difficult. This pattern on this lion's body is that of a bloodthirsty beast of the second order. Luan murmured and said without turning to Ingrid, "Ingrid, stay behind me. This lion is capable of killing you easily if he attacks you." It was sad, but it was a reality. The mere weight of a bloody lion's kick would have been capable of killing Ingrid. If it has bit an arm, Ingrid would lose her arm. If it bit her leg, she would lose her leg, etc. The lion's bite could reach an incredible 17 tons. Even Luan had to be cautious and not let himself carelessly be bitten by this lion. "Okay," Ingrid responded nervously, hiding behind Luan. Luan left his things on the floor. From his waist, he took out a long bone shaped into a dagger, and a white aura began to surround Luan's body as his strong intent to kill was intensified the moment Luan used his assassin chi. The instincts of this bloodthirsty lion were very good. The moment Luan had gotten serious, the bloodthirsty lion became even more cautious. He walked around Luan and Ingrid, looking for a breach to attack. That white aura again. This is related to Luan's chi, correct? Ingrid asked herself rhetorically. She also felt Luan's intent to kill, but was unaffected, since Luan was able to differentiate between allies and enemies when using this. *ROARR*. The bloodthirsty lion roared loudly as he tried to frighten them and create an opening, but unfortunately for him, although Ingrid was frightened by this, Luan was not frightened and his defense was impenetrable. Seeing that the bloodthirsty lion was very cautious and would not attack, Luan acted. When Luan appeared in front of the bloodthirsty lion, he didn't think much and simply punched the lion in the rib. This punch was strong enough to split a mountain. Even a white whale would have fallen to the ground by that punch. *ag*. The bloodthirsty lion felt pain coursing through his body, but suddenly, the bloody lion's body became weak and involuntarily fell to the ground. Luan's punch was loaded with negative chi, causing all those who were hit to become weaker, in pure disorder, and although the bloodthirsty lion was strong, it was still inferior to Luan's strength using his negative chi. But that was not enough to defeat the beast. Despite having become weak, with a negative effect on its body, the bloodthirsty lion managed to stand. "Hey, not bad," Luan said. He was referring to the fact that the bloodthirsty lion was still standing. The bloodthirsty lion heard the voice as he closed his eyes in an attempt to endure the pain. It didn't even bother to scream in pain before turning and attempting to escape. This type of enemy was not someone he could deal with. The bloodthirsty lion could only escape by running away through the bloody forest. Only then might his life be saved. But when the bloodthirsty lion was just about to flee, Luan touched the back of its neck with his bone dagger. That touch alone weighed more than 10,000 tons. Boom. With a thunderous sound, the body of the bloodthirsty lion was buried in the ground and the head was decapitated in the process. Luan looked indifferently at the bloodthirsty lion and thanked the animal for being frantic. If it were a normal case, Luan would not have been able to kill a lion of that level of strength so easily. "Wow, that was quick." Ingrid expressed her admiration for Luan's strength. Increasingly, Ingrid was curious about Luan's past life, which had allowed him to become so strong. Furthermore, in his past life, had Luan loved someone? Was he ever married? This was something that Ingrid couldn't help wondering. In cases like this, the faster you kill, the better. "If I had been bitten, it would have been dangerous," Luan said without turning around. He took the body of the bloodthirsty lion with one hand and dragged it out of the crater. Luan got close to a tree and started to cut the leather of the bloodthirsty lion that was almost 3 meters long, and began fashioning a bag to carry his items. After that, he also cut all the meat and removed the bones and tendons, and cut everything proportionally to fit inside the new backpack he had created by sewing with a thread he made from tree bark. Going to the lion's head, which was big enough to bite half of Luan's body with a mouthful, Luan pulled out all the sharp teeth out of the skull. Using the largest canine tooth of the bloodthirsty lion, Luan created a new dagger for himself. Although it was only 20 centimeters long, Luan used the tendon of the lion's rib to tie it to the leg bone that he cut to the size of 20 centimeters. Now the total size of the dagger was 40 centimeters and the thickness was 3 centimeters. "It's done," Luan was satisfied with the new backpack and dagger and started to keep all the things he found inside the backpack, while for the dagger he made a small sheath to put on his waist. It looks cool, I think, Ingrid commented. Although it is not the best, it is enough for our current purposes, Luan said, and handed Ingrid his previous dagger. Use this if necessary. Thanks. Ingrid thanked him with a smile. Although she did not know how to handle a dagger, it was better that if she fought empty-handed. After that, Luan and Ingrid continued to walk through the blood-red forest. Ingrid, who walked alongside Luan, balled her hands into fists. She vowed to become stronger and not be a dead weight. It was then she noticed that she was feeling more and more strange in that place. She could feel that her strength was greater by the minute. How strange, she thought. As they walked, Luan found other rare medicinal herbs and harvested them with great precision. It was as if he had done this 1,000 times. Ingrid praised him mentally. She herself had no idea how to do this without affecting the quality of the medicinal herbs a little. Ah! Look! At that moment, Ingrid suddenly exclaimed, pointing to the sky. Luan looked, only to see countless birds flying, practically covering the entire sky. Let's move fast and hide, Luan said gravely. Yes. Ingrid didn't understand, but she didn't dare to be slow. Luan and Ingrid ran in the direction from where the birds had flown, and found a cave. Let's go in there. Luan pointed in the direction of the cave. Ingrid nodded and continued to run to the cave. Splash, splash, splash. Asterisk. When they entered the cave, the sound of footsteps on the water echoed inside the cave, but in reality, it was not water, but blood. Of course, this was not surprising, considering that before they had been in a lake of blood, but what most caught Luan's attention was the altar he saw at the end of the cave, and on top of the altar there was something sitting on top. As it was dark, even with Luan's vision, he was unable to see it properly. Luan's curiosity intensified, but he was still cautious, mainly because he knew that some powerful beast was out there was strong enough to scare all those birds. Follow behind me. Avoid touching things, even on the wall, avoid touching anything, Luan said. Okay. Ingrid agreed and asked, Luan, do you know what that was out there? I'm not sure, but there is a good chance that those birds were fleeing some powerful beast, Luan replied and started walking slowly towards the altar. Luan, I am noticing something coming from the bottom of the cave. And is that an altar? Ingrid was able to see a little as she approached. Did something attract your attention? Luan became thoughtful. He then said, until you get there, don't touch it, let me confirm something. And yes, it's an altar. Okay. Ingrid realized by Luan's tone of voice that what she was being attracted to could be a good thing. But as Luan said, she had to be cautious and not touch anything without his permission. After all, he knew the supernatural more than she did. Well, she practically knew nothing, just knew what Luan had said before. When they got very close to the altar, something happened on the side of the cave. Asterisk roar rrrr. Asterisk. A deafening roar, capable of shaking the earth, echoed throughout the structure. It's a wyvern. Luan didn't expect there to be such a beast in this place. This was on a totally different level. It was at least a creature of the third order, and to reach the third order, one must achieve the strength of at least 100 common men. This was twice what Luan currently had. Is that very dangerous? Ingrid asked, startled. Yes, so let's avoid making noise now. I'll also cast a spell to hide our presence. I hope this is enough, Luan said. Luan and Ingrid were silent. Ingrid was barely breathing, afraid to make a noise. They didn't even bother to walk towards the altar, their safety was more important. Only after 30 minutes did Luan speak again. Okay, now I don't feel the presence of the wyverns anymore. Probably already ate enough and left. Phew tilde. Ingrid patted her chest and sighed with relief. Before, she had been very concerned. Only now when she heard what Luan said, was she able to feel relaxed. Luan made a small flame in his hand and started walking towards the altar. When the flames lit the altar, both Luan and Ingrid could see an old altar table with ancient patterns, and on the top there was something written that Ingrid was unable to understand. Blood altar. Left by Emperor Shan. Luan was able to read the symbols. Is that what is written up there? Ingrid didn't expect Luan to be able to read it, but remembering that Luan had memories from a past life, she supposed that was how he understood, which made her more sure of what Luan said about having memories from a past life. Yes, it seems to be an inheritance. In fact, you said you were being attracted to something here, right? Luan asked. Yes, it is that sphere. Ingrid pointed to a ball the size of a baseball sitting on the altar. Chapter 47. Testing, Part 1. The altar was made of red wood, and in front, there was a wooden table where the orb was. This is loaded with negative energy. Whatever it is, you can't touch it right now, but don't worry, I know how to get that negative energy out. Luan looked at the orb that Ingrid had pointed at, and a strange light shone in his red eyes. He patted Ingrid's head as he finished speaking. I'm not a child, did you know that? Ingrid murmured. Did you say anything? Luan listened, but he found the way she spoke cute when pouting, which made him want to provoke her. Just talking to myself. Ingrid spoke a second time. Luan laughed and returned his attention to the orb. With flames in his hand made of chi, Luan was able to see the orb clearly. It was red, and it seemed to have roots within it. Approaching, Luan grabbed the orb. The moment he touched it, a strong negative energy started to attack Luan. However, instead of harming Luan, it was actually a great benefit, as it was made of pure negative energy. Ingrid saw that Luan's chi was getting denser, and around Luan's body, a white, reddish aura appeared. But the reddish part was constantly being replaced by white. It was as if it were being purified. Almost 20 minutes later, Luan had basically finished purifying the orb. This not only caused the negative energy of the orb to leave, but also increased Luan's cultivation. Now he was at refining chi level 3. It seems that even though I took the negative energy, this orb did not react to my chi. This was something that Luan did not expect, since it seemed that Ingrid was attracted to this orb, and this orb seemed to be attracted to her too. Ingrid, Luan looked at her and said gravely, warning her, I also realize that you have some affinity with this orb, and it seems to be a good thing, an inheritance from some powerful being from the past. However, it could possibly be dangerous. It may trigger a test where the heir to the inheritance has to pass. Often this can result in death, and even if it doesn't reach that point, you could be seriously injured. Of course, with great risks come great rewards. I think it's too risky, but I'll let you choose. Ingrid was thoughtful. She didn't know whether to accept it or not. After thinking a lot, Ingrid looked determinedly at Luan and said with a soft smile, I want to try, and besides, I believe that if it were that dangerous, you wouldn't have given me the choice. Maybe you wouldn't have even asked my opinion, but you did it anyway just to test my determination, am I right? Hey, okay, you're right. If the worst happens, I can still destroy the orb. Luan seemed satisfied with Ingrid's answer. He was also surprised that she could see through him. I knew it. Before, Ingrid was not 100% confident, but on learning that she was right, she a calmness wash over her heart. Okay, don't make so much noise. If not, you might attract some frantic animal here, Luan warned. Yes, sorry, I was a little excited at having gotten it right. Ingrid covered her mouth, admitting her mistake. Luan felt an impulse to embrace this cute creature, but he stopped himself. He concentrated on giving the final touch, leaving the vestige of his negative chi in the orb. If necessary, he could make it explode so as to not let Ingrid get hurt. After everything was prepared, Luan handed the orb over to Ingrid. Ingrid realized that after the orb was purified by Luan, it had now become something more beautiful, looking like something cosmic in crimson color. Holding it with her hands, Ingrid's mind went blank. Luan caught her before she fell to the floor. Runes came out of the orb and began to integrate with Ingrid's body, and in her mind, where everything had been dark just a moment ago, she woke up in a strange place. It was even more bloody than the bloody forest. The place was all red and surrounded by blood on the floor that reached Ingrid's shin, and in the sky, there was a blood-red moon. Tisk. So the only one compatible with my powers after 10,000 years is a woman. A voice echoed in Ingrid's mind with displeasure. She tried to find the bear this time, which was grave and ancient, seeming to come from an elder being who had lived for thousands of years. Who is it? Ingrid asked, trying to find the man who spoke in her mind. Little girl, go back, there is no way for you to receive the inheritance of this Emperor Shen. And tell your man not to destroy this orb. In that respect, I won't hurt you. A man suddenly appeared not far from Ingrid. This man had blood-red hair and eyes. Wearing black clothes with patterns and antique red letters, he had an indifferent look about him as he stared at Ingrid morosely. Ingrid's heart sped up. She had never before been terrified as much as she was at that moment, even when she had heard the wyvern's roar. Remembering that this man seemed to fear that Luan would destroy the orb, Ingrid dared to ask him, just because I'm a woman, I can't inherit this. Yes, the test to earn my inheritance is not something that a weak woman will be able to endure. I don't want that boy to destroy the orb, so you better go back, said the impatient man. Who is weak? How do you know I am weak if you don't even know me or test me? Besides, since the beginning, this orb has been attracting me. If I'm so weak, why did it call out to me with such persistence? Ingrid refused to accept that he had called her weak. Although she was not the most powerful person, at least she believed she was quite brave and determined. Quote. All right then. Since you want to be tested, I'll do a simple test. If you can pass it, I'll let you try to pass the real test. What do you think about that? Emperor Shen offered a way out. Yes, I'll do it. Ingrid nodded with determination. Okay. The test is simple. You have 40 minutes, in which time you'll need to be able to breathe in the blood pool for at least 1 minute, Emperor Shen said with an indifferent smile. Simple, right? As soon as Emperor Shen finished speaking, a pool of blood appeared in front of Ingrid. It was difficult to discern the depth since it was full of blood. Before that, I have a question, Ingrid said. Say it. Emperor Shen looked at her. Is my origin related to blood? Ingrid asked. If not, it doesn't make sense. And I wouldn't be able to breathe under a pool full of blood. The only explanation would be if I awakened my origin, and then I might be able to pass this test. Yes, you do have the origin of blood, although it has not been awakened. I confess that I was surprised you were able to guess all this, Emperor Shen said and sighed. Since you have guessed this much, I think I can help you a little. When Emperor Shen finished speaking, he pointed a finger at Ingrid, and in her mind, the first part of a cultivation technique appeared. Less than blood is life, blood is whole greater than. This is. Emperor Shen interrupted her and said, you only have 40 minutes. You can choose to try to awaken your origin and then pass the test, or you can give up. Ingrid felt like cursing him, since practically before, if she hadn't awakened her origin, it was basically impossible for her to pass this test, but at least in the end, this man gave her a part of a cultivation technique that was related to her origin. She then just had to affirm her determination and try her best. Ingrid wasted no time answering. She sat on the floor with her legs crossed in the blood, and began to meditate. Outside Ingrid's mind, Luan saw that Ingrid's body was absorbing the essence of blood from the floor, and he thought of something and laid her on her back in the blood. And just as he imagined, Ingrid was absorbing the blood essence more quickly. He also used his chi to keep the energy in Ingrid's body from getting out of control, and also helped her stabilize and fuse with the blood essence that integrated with her body. You have a good man. Emperor Shen murmured under his breath. If Emperor Shen had previously doubted whether Ingrid would be able to achieve this in time, now he had no doubt. The hardest part was not pulling the blood essence into her body, but being able to integrate, and she also needed to be in direct contact with blood to have a better effect. Now with the help of Luan, who was assisting Ingrid with absorbing and integrating with the blood essence, her chances had increased from 1% to 50%. That was a very significant increase. In Ingrid's mind, she was in constant struggle. She felt and saw things that she had never experienced before. The essence of blood that entered her body made her feel warm and painful, but at the same time she felt gentle energy that was helping her constantly. Luan. She murmured his name. 35 minutes later, Ingrid's cultivation grew so much that she entered refinement chi and reached level 3, the same level that Luan was currently at. But even so, she was unable to connect with her origin. However, she felt confident that she would be able to pass the test. Ingrid opened her eyes in the sea of consciousness, and said, I will make it. Chapter 48. Testing, Part 2. With a determined look, Ingrid entered the pool of blood. Emperor Shen wanted to say something but gave up. In the pool of blood, she felt a little disgusted, but she still entered boldly. The pool was deep, so it was easy for her to dip her head into the blood. She tried to breathe while being submissive to the blood, but she couldn't get it right away. However, she didn't give up and kept trying as she drowned a few times with blood, which was pretty disgusting to say the least. 2 minutes later, she still couldn't breathe under the blood. However, she realized something. That was the blood of this lake of blood was being absorbed by her frantically. Ingrid decided to take a chance and sat at the bottom of the pool of blood and started meditating. A minute later, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Time ran out and the pool was dry and Ingrid was still meditating. Only after another 5 minutes did she open her eyes. Did I fail? Ingrid looked disappointed. She was immersed in meditation and had lost track of time. She found herself trapped in a strange and wonderful state, and thanks to that, she reached level 4 of refining chi. Remembering this, although sad, she was happy with the improvement she had achieved. She stepped out of the empty pool, stood on the blood-soaked floor again. With a wave of her hand, she made the blood on the floor float under her control, and soon was able to shape it like a solid sword. No, you passed. Emperor Shen took a while to say, and added, you managed to breathe 1.5 minutes in the pool of blood. Oh, I didn't even notice. Ingrid was pleasantly surprised and made the blood sword undo itself. I admit, I underestimated your talent and especially your husband. He really went to great lengths to get you to do that. Without his help, you would have only had a 1% chance of succeeding. Emperor Shen became more and more curious about Luan. He, who was an emperor of the Sixth Order, was rarely curious about anyone, but now, besides wanting to find a successor, nothing else had mattered to him. Luan. Ingrid felt that somehow she had received help from him, and when she heard Emperor Shen treat Luan as if he were her husband, she blushed furiously and murmured softly and ever lower, he is not my husband, perhaps my boyfriend. Emperor Shen heard what she said, but he didn't care, he went straight to the point. I don't have much time. Decide now. Do you want to continue and try to pass the real test, or leave now? Know that you have 2 more tests, and they are very difficult and risky, little girl. If you are afraid of getting hurt, it is better to give up now. He almost said that she could die, but he knew if things reached a critical stage, it was certain that that boy would destroy the orb, so Emperor Shen would not make things so difficult for her. However, he would not make it easy either. He would not let a weak person receive his inheritance. My name is Ingrid and not, little girl. And yes, I will continue. Ingrid would not miss this chance. Okay. I liked your determination, but then don't say I didn't warn you, the middle-aged emperor said with an impassive expression. His voice was also devoid of any emotion. Ingrid nodded and looked at him determinedly. Another thing that Emperor Shen did not say was that he himself did not expect her to be so capable, even though he had not yet connected with her origin. This made him strongly believe that the origin of this young girl was very special, it was possible that it was even stronger than his. With a snap of his fingers, the landscape changed. Boom. Asterisk. Not far away, a volcano was making loud sounds, while strangely boiling blood bubbled and overflowed. There is still time to give up. The next test is to enter this volcano and stay inside it for 20 minutes, said Emperor Shen. Ingrid's body shuddered involuntarily. The thought of entering this volcano with blood boiling from it was frightening. What are the risks I will take if I enter, and do you have any tips on how I can stay inside the volcano without getting hurt? Ingrid asked. As you may have noticed, only your mind is here, while your body is intact. However, if you go in there and can't take it, even though it doesn't hurt your body, it can affect your mind and cultivation. As for a tip, you have to get the blood around you under your control, just like you did before with the blood on the floor. Of course, the boiling blood is much more difficult to control, but if you can, it will be easy to stay 20 minutes inside the volcano, Emperor Shen explained. Taking a deep breath, Ingrid affirmed her determination and walked towards the volcano. Next, she used brute force to jump and climbed over half the volcano in one jump. The rest of the way she jumped a few times until she reached the top. Looking into the volcano, her body shuddered. She felt hot just being around it, but still, she jumped up bravely, even a bit suicidally. Splash. Asterisk. Ah. Ingrid cried out in pain, but instead of giving up, she took it in stride. Not only in the illusion did she scream, but her body in Luan's arms also let out a heart-breaking cry of pain. Luan wanted to help her and used his chi, but these were wounds that came from the mind, they were not something he could rectify easily, however, he continued to help in what he could. If necessary, he could still destroy the orb. Meanwhile, Ingrid's torture continued. She felt like a live crab in a boiling pot. Her skin was turning red, and it wasn't from the blood. Chapter 49. Testing, Part 3. She had to try hard not to give up. What made her prevail was the fact that she wanted to be strong enough to fight side by side with Luan. Ingrid bit her bottom lip hard until it bled. She shouted, I will get over this. I will control this blood. Her scream came out like a scream from a banshee and the blood around her spread for a second, but soon it was around her again, torturing her. Luan, who was about to destroy the orb, seeing Ingrid's determined cry, re-strengthened his will and supported her decision. 10 minutes passed. Ingrid was already speechless from screaming so much in pain, but at no time did she give up. Her will was greater than Emperor Shen had expected. This surprised even Luan, who often wanted to destroy the orb, but he did not, as it would go against Ingrid's will and all the effort and sacrifice she made to endure so long would then be in vain. Ingrid's body started to convulse. Luan was nervous and used his chi to help her body stabilize. Ingrid's lips were already turning blue, her eyes turned up, but before it got any worse, Luan managed to find the cause of the problem and was able to help. She had been running out of oxygen in her brain. Luan joined his lips to hers and passed the chi directly to her, and made the oxygen mixed with his chi go right into Ingrid's brain and help her. With a long, frightened breath, Ingrid breathed again and her purple lips turned to color once more. She was almost bleeding. In fact, she had a slight nosebleed. Luan saw this, and cleaned it up. He saw that 18 minutes had passed since the trial had started, but he didn't know that Ingrid had to stay 20 minutes until the test was over, so he was determined this time to destroy the orb before anything more serious might happen. I can, because I have Luan, Ingrid murmured. Damn woman, how can you do this to me? Luan muttered in conflict. He didn't expect Ingrid to say that just when he was about to destroy the orb. In the volcano, Ingrid, who had lost consciousness and was about to give up, felt an energy that made her feel comfortable even in this hellish place. She opened her eyes wide and closed her hands in fists. Yes, there was very little left. There was no way she was going to give up now, right? When it was only a few seconds before time ran out, Ingrid felt something different. She tried to move the blood and almost succeeded, but then the feeling vanished. Congratulations, you made it, Emperor Shen said with a surprised expression but soon returned his original indifferent one. Ingrid didn't answer. She just lay on the floor, not caring about anything else, and took a few deep breaths, feeling alive again. She didn't expect it to be so tortuous. She felt like she had been cooked alive. For a moment, she really would have been. If Luan hadn't helped her, maybe now she. Hey, you said there are 2 tests, right? Is the next test as difficult as this one, or is it even worse? Ingrid was still lying on the bloody floor when she asked that question. Yes, it is twice the difficulty you have gone through just now, Emperor Shen replied. I see. I give up. I already understood my limit, and just now, I'm sure I almost died. I can't keep making Luan worry about me. It is a pity, but I will give up. Ingrid blew out a long sigh with regret, but then she smiled. At least, she believed she was not a complete coward. She at least managed to pass the first test and she herself was surprised by her determination. Little girl. No, Ingrid, you won. I didn't want to let you pass initially, but even if I did, I can't administer the test again. Psi luck is also important. It can be said that your luck made you win in the end. Anyway, I'm already dead, and I said that you had to pass 2 tests and technically you passed. Right, I'm going to pass you on the other 2 parts of the technique as well. Emperor Shen's voice grew weak, and in Ingrid's mind, 2 other parts of the technique appeared. And then, everything went dark, and the next moment she opened her eyes, Ingrid saw Luan's perfect face with his red eyes looking back at her. I won. I did it, Luan. Ingrid was still hoarse in her voice, and when she said that, it sounded a little strange, but she didn't care about that now. She was happy to have passed the test. Congratulations, you were very brave. Luan initially wanted to lecture her, because he thought she had taken too many chances, but seeing how happy she was, he didn't want to, or better to say, he couldn't do it. In the end, he smiled softly as he said just these words to her. Ingrid, who was using Luan's lap as a pillow, sat down on her knees on the floor, and she stared at his charming face. I love you to death, Luan. Ingrid said. Wrapping her arms around his neck, she kissed Luan, catching him off guard. She gave him a double surprise, he kind of surprised that a man who loves his woman would like to have. Without Ingrid noticing, lost in her own delight, Runes left the orb in her right hand and went towards the altar. The whole ground shook and a boulder fell from the sky, until even the rocky mass that surrounded them developed huge web-like cracks. At the point, Luan and Ingrid stopped kissing and were focused on the altar that was shaking non-stop. The slab that formed the table exploded and the lid snapped open. A flash of crimson light that was brighter than blood came out of the counter. The thing which emitted the light flew towards Ingrid, and when Luan went to attack it, the thing swerved and landed in Ingrid's hand, obediently. Wow! Ingrid exclaimed in surprise. Chapter 50. Leaving the bloody forest. Luan looked at the object in Ingrid's hand and saw a 140 centimeters black scythe, but what caught the most attention was the neon crimson red pattern designs on the scythe. This is part of the inheritance, right? Luan asked rhetorically. Yes. Ingrid nodded and said urgently, are we going to get out of this cave? It looks like it will fall apart at any moment. Yes, let's get out of here. Saying that, Luan and Ingrid left the cave. Seconds later, the cave collapsed. Where are the scythe and orb? Luan asked as he carried the backpack made of lion skin on his. Back. Here's the scythe. Ingrid showed him a pendant with a black chain and a crimson-red scythe the size of a thumb attached to it, but the orb. She was agitated, believing that she forgot in the cave. I don't have the orb. I think I dropped it. Seeing Luan's expressionless reaction, Ingrid started to feel guilty, but then she saw a smile curl on Luan's lips and realized that he was playing with her. It is here with me. You almost left it inside the cave. Luan took the orb out of his pocket. Luan, you almost scared me to death. Ingrid snorted in anger resentfully as she pouted. Luan chuckled and said next, okay, I'm going to stop teasing you, and we better get out of here. The noise may end up attracting some frantic animals. After walking for a few minutes towards the north, Luan said to Ingrid, we are close to the exit. In fact, this forest is very good. This will be of great help to you. I think so, too, but I'm too weak at the moment to be able to handle this for probably quite some time, Ingrid said with a sigh. Before, I felt that my blood chi decreased very quickly just by holding this scythe. It was then that this scythe took on the shape of a pendant. Maybe it felt like it was hurting me. Well, at least that's what I think. I'm not sure. Not surprising. This weapon is top-notch, but at the moment it is not recommended to use it if it is not an emergency. Although he did not know much about this weapon, he knew it was at least from the 5th order. It may even have been from the 6th order, but there was no way for him to find out without studying the sickle a little. However, the priority now was to leave this place. Ah yes, I said blood chi. This is from a core of energy, which was formed. Luan laughed and said, I know. It is a nucleus that was created in the center of your body, right? Boring, because you didn't let me explain, even though you already knew. At least you could pretend to be surprised, Ingrid said, pretending to be angry. Okay, I will try my best to fake surprise next time, Luan answered seriously. After running for a few minutes, Luan and Ingrid quickly arrived around the lake of blood. In fact, this bloody forest was originally from Emperor Shen, that same man whose name you read at the shrine. Now this bloody forest has become practically mine, Ingrid said excitedly. It was not as if Luan had not guessed it. He realized at the moment that Ingrid had passed the test. Moreover, the orb was connected to this bloody forest. If they were to leave and then want to return, as long as they had adequate strength for the orb absorb, they could open a crack to this bloody forest. Oh, then that's it. This place will be very useful to you in the future. Luan had already discovered that Ingrid had a blood origin, although not yet awakened. She must have received some blood cultivation technique. This explained Ingrid's big rise in her cultivation, and also why she felt more powerful from the beginning in this forest. Of course, as promised before, he feigned surprise. Yes, before disappearing, in addition to a cultivation technique, Emperor Shen gave me some information. Ingrid was satisfied with his reaction and continued to say, can now say that he is my master. Well, he taught me a cultivation technique, and he also gave me the orb and this weapon, as well as this bloody forest. Ingrid touched the necklace pendant around her neck. It was precisely the scythe pendant. That's pretty much it, but he's already dead, correct? Luan asked. He understood that now that Ingrid inherited Emperor Shen's inheritance, she had basically become his disciple. Holding Ingrid's hand, he started walking with her under the bloody canopy. Ingrid no longer felt as shy as before, but it was inevitable that holding Luan's big, strong hand made her heart beat faster. Taking a deep breath, as soon as they crossed the blood river, Ingrid said, yes, and it seemed that he only left a little of his soul, or whatever, in the orb to find an heir to his legacy. As Luan already had his backpack full of things, he used his chi to scare the animals nearby. When they walked for a long time, Luan and Ingrid saw a crack. We are finally able to leave. Ingrid blew out a long breath. She couldn't wait to go back and take a shower. Her body had dried blood everywhere. It was uncomfortable to be like that. Luan nodded. He also wanted to get back soon. In addition, Ingrid owned the orb that gave access to this forest. There was no reason to feel conflicted about leaving this place now since they could return again soon. When they passed through the dimensional gap, Luan and Ingrid fell into the sea. Luan could very well make them float on top of the water, but he didn't. He only made the backpack able to float because he wanted to avoid getting it wet with seawater. He did this by surrounding it with his chi. Splash. Asterisk. Ingrid looked at Luan as she stuck her head out of the water, but then she noticed it was already day. How long did we stay inside that forest? Luan, who was rubbing his body with seawater, wanting to get the sticky blood off of his body, replied, almost 9 hours has passed. Quote. We stayed out all night. Your mother must be worried, Ingrid said with regret. I don't think she's worried. Luan murmured. He could imagine that his mother imagined that he and Ingrid stayed out all night playing football. Did you say something? Ingrid was not able to hear, since Luan had murmured what he said very quietly. Even with her improved hearing, she was strangely unable to hear him. I said you are beautiful. Luan looked into her eyes. Idiot. Ingrid blushed when she heard this. She knew he only said it to change the subject, but it worked. Ingrid did the same as Luan, and began to rub her body with seawater, drawing the dried blood from her body. Leaving the sea, Ingrid and Luan walked on the sand on the beach heading towards Luan's car. Before getting into the car, Luan used his chi to dry their clothes. Ingrid still needed to learn to use her chi properly, so she had to rely on Luan's help. Opening the trunk of the car, Luan put on his backpack and his dagger made of bone and tooth. Ingrid also kept the dagger she had received from Luan. She wanted to keep that dagger as a souvenir. Getting in the car, Luan didn't have to drive for long until he arrived at his home. He pressed the garage door button and entered the garage with his car. Luan did not take things out of the trunk. He would come back to do it later. First, he wanted to take a shower and remove the smell of blood and the sea from his body. Ingrid was the same. She urgently needed a shower. By the time the two opened the door, Mara was already awake, waiting for them sitting on the sofa in the living room. Mara walked towards them. She frowned when she smelled a strange smell from both of them. Why are you two reeking of the sea and blood? My God, were you hurt? She was definitely worried. It's okay, Mom. We are not hurt, Luan said to her. It's a long story. Can we talk later?